Jett Mercer had lost track of how many times he had said, "This is the last time," but he was fairly certain the universe kept count. He suspected it was laughing at him right now. The spire of fortune loomed over the asteroid city, a neon-soaked monolith of excess and corruption. Officially, it was a high-end casino and trade hub. Unofficially, it was Varric the Butcher's personal piggy bank, stuffed with credits squeezed from every desperate gambler, smuggler, and con artist in the outer systems. And Jett Mercer owed him more than he could count. Stepping through the grand entrance, he adjusted the collar of his stolen jacket and tried to ignore the faint smell of someone else's sweat. The atrium stretched before him, an opulent expanse of polished obsidian floors reflecting the holographic chandeliers above. Gilded tables surrounded by the galaxy's most ruthless criminals hummed with the sounds of clinking glasses and low, murmured bets. The air was thick with cigar smoke and synthetic perfume, a carefully cultivated atmosphere of wealth and quiet menace. Jett's fingers twitched at his sides, resisting the urge to check if the guards at the entrance had spotted him yet. The two looming figures near the grand spiral staircase stiffened ever so slightly as his gaze flicked toward them. They definitely recognized him. He forced a breath through his nose. Act natural. Blend in. Just another high roller looking to waste credits he didn't have. He took a step toward the main floor and immediately collided with a server carrying an entire tray of glowing blue cocktails. The drinks went airborne in a spectacular arc before raining down onto a group of finely dressed patrons. One woman shrieked as the luminescent liquid splattered over her gown, which, by sheer bad luck, reacted with the drink and started to smoke. A man turned, his face dark with rage, reaching for the blaster at his hip. Jett didn't wait to apologize. He kept walking, briskly, straight toward the private tables. "Mercer!" A deep, familiar voice rumbled. Jett turned, his practiced grin already in place. Varric the Butcher sat at his private table, an enormous slab of muscle and cybernetics wrapped in an elegant suit that probably cost more than Jett's entire ship. The crime lord's dark, mechanical fingers tapped rhythmically against the armrest, his expression unreadable. Jett spread his arms in mock enthusiasm. "Varric, you look fantastic. That's a great suit. Love the synthetic silk." Varric did not smile. "Seat." Jett obeyed without hesitation, sliding into the chair opposite him. To his left, Gorik, a reptilian enforcer built like a small moon, cracked his knuckles. To his right, a sleek android with burning red optics turned its head slightly, calculating something Jett didn't want to know. He cleared his throat. "Now I know what you're thinking. Where's my money?" "Great question. Complex answer." Varric leaned forward, the dim light glinting off the intricate metal plating that covered half his skull. "Not complex. You lost. You owe. You pay." Jett forced a chuckle, though his hands remained flat on the table, away from any easily breakable bones. His mind raced through every possible escape route, all of which involved severe bodily harm. This was bad. Really bad. Right, but see, the economy's a bit tricky these days. I put in a request for financial restructuring. Varric raised a single cybernetic finger, and before Jett could react, Gorik seized his wrist and slammed his hand onto the table. Pain shot up his arm as the enforcer's grip tightened, claws pressing just enough to let Jett know how quickly he could lose a few fingers. Jett felt sweat bead at his temple. He tried to keep his grin in place, but his voice wavered. Whoa. No need for violence. I'm sure we can work something out. A business arrangement. A win-win." Varric sighed, as if he were discussing a minor inconvenience rather than a potential execution. "You always talk, Mercer. I grow tired of your mouth." Jett swallowed hard. "Do not say something stupid. That's fair, completely understandable. I do talk a lot. But..." He lifted his free hand quickly, as if presenting a grand idea. "What if, instead of removing one of my important body parts, I make you a deal? One that benefits you?" Varric studied him for a long moment, then leaned back. "You are in no position to make deals." "Ah, but see, I have skills," Jett said, flashing a grin he definitely didn't feel. "You need something stolen. I can steal it. One job. Why my debt clean?" Varric considered him before gesturing toward the table. A small data chip slid across the polished surface, stopping just before Jett's trapped hand. "The job is simple," Varric said. "Steal a small cargo crate from the Red Knives Syndicate. Bring it here. Do this, and we forget your debt." Jett's grin faltered. The Red Knives. His stomach twisted. The Red Knives. The ultraviolent, knife-obsessed maniacs who carve their names into their victims? Those Red Knives? Varric's cybernetic eyes zoomed in on Jett's face. I carve my name into you." Jett winced. "Fair point." Varric folded his massive hands together. "Port Aska. Their private casino vault. You will retrieve it. You will not open it. And you will bring it directly to me." Jett palmed the data chip, nodding slowly. "Easy. A walk in the park." Varric smiled for the first time. It was a terrible sight. "You leave tomorrow." "And Mercer?" He leaned in close, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Do not fail." Jett forced a casual salute, then stood briskly. He could feel the enforcer's gazes drilling into his back as he strode out of the casino. His heart was hammering. His fingers tingled with lingering pain. He had no plan, no crew, and a suicide mission he couldn't escape. The starfall sat like a rusting insult to all things aerodynamic in the docking bay. Jett sighed, rubbing his temples. Then he turned to his new crew. Rhea Kale, arms crossed, scowling like she was already contemplating murdering him in his sleep. Bobby, the pacifist combat droid, standing rigidly like a glorified toaster. And Dr. V. Lyric, adjusting her goggles, which were actively sparking. Jett took a deep breath. "All right, we have a job. Should be easy. Quick in-and-out heist. No problems." Silence. Bobby whirred. "Statistically, given our collective history of failures, betrayals, and general incompetence, the likelihood of success is 3.2%. Rhea cracked her knuckles. "I like those odds." V tilted her head. "Wait, is this the one where we die horribly, or just go to prison?" Jett exhaled. The universe was definitely laughing at him now. Jett Mercer sat in the captain's chair of the Starfall, trying his best to look like he was in control of the situation. He absolutely was not. The ship's interior smelled faintly of burnt wiring, something suspiciously close to old socks, and, if he wasn't mistaken, melted plastic. That was new. The cockpit lights flickered like they were powered by sheer willpower, and in the corner, a panel sparked violently before going dark. Jett ignored it. If he acknowledged the ship's issues, it meant he had to fix them. And that was a problem for future Jett. Across from him, his crew gathered around the holodable, which was currently displaying a holographic projection of their heist target, Port Aska's Red Knives Syndicate Casino. The holodable, being as reliable as the rest of the ship, occasionally glitched and replaced the vault schematic with a dancing cartoon penguin. No one bothered to fix it. Jett cleared his throat. "All right, team. We've got a simple job." "Is it, though?" Rhea Kale asked, crossing her arms. "Because every job you've ever had has gone to hell in some new and exciting way." Jett ignored that. "We sneak in, grab the cargo, and get out. Quick. Clean. No problems." Bobby, the reprogrammed combat droid, made a whirring noise that might have been his equivalent of laughter. "Your definition of no problems does not align with statistical probability." V. Lyric, the crew's scientist, was poking at the holodable, flipping through schematics with an expression of pure enthusiasm. "Okay, but hear me out. What if we made the plan more interesting?" Jett pinched the bridge of his nose. "No more interesting plans. The last time we tried something interesting, we ended up banned from the entire Vegas system." "That wasn't my fault," V said, offended. "How was I supposed to know the mayor was allergic to antimatter? You weren't supposed to be feeding him antimatter in the first place." "I was testing a theory." Jett exhaled. This was his crew. This was his life. He gestured back at the holodable, trying to wrangle their attention. "Look, we'll dock at Port Aska, slip into the casino, and retrieve the cargo from their vault. Bobby, you're on security override. Rhea, you handle anyone who gets in our way." V. He hesitated, trying to find a way to word this carefully. "You don't touch anything." V blinked. "That's incredibly rude." "It's incredibly necessary." Rhea leaned in, tapping at the holographic vault display, which flickered before briefly turning into a low-resolution picture of Cat. "You're forgetting one thing." Jett groaned. "I was hoping I wasn't." "This is a Red Knives Syndicate casino," she continued, drumming her fingers on the table. "These guys don't mess around. The last person who tried to rob them got sent back in pieces. Literal pieces. In multiple envelopes." Bobby beeped. "According to my data, the Red Knives have a long history of excessively creative revenge. In one instance, they mailed a thief back to his family one toe at a time. Each toe individually gift-wrapped. Statistically, we are highly likely to end up in decorative packaging." Jett felt his stomach drop. "Okay, so we just don't get caught." Rhea gave him a look. "Oh, well, when you put it like that, it sounds so easy." Bobby beeped again. "This plan has a 7.4% chance of success. That is, however, a marked improvement over our previous endeavors." "I'll take it," Jett muttered. As if the ship itself sensed his dwindling confidence, there was a loud bang from the ventilation shaft. A loose panel detached from the ceiling and crashed onto the holodable, sending sparks flying. The holographic vault flickered, then abruptly turned into a pixelated image of a frowning face before disappearing altogether. Jett sighed. "Great. Now the ship is judging me, too." Rhea smirked. "Wouldn't be the first time." Jett slapped his hands down on the console. "All right, everyone get ready. We leave in an hour. Try not to break anything before we even get there." Rhea scoffed. "No promises." V grinned. "Does that include the ship? Because I might need to make a few adjustments." Jett's stomach dropped. No adjustments. Absolutely no adjustments." But it was too late. V was already halfway to the engine room, muttering something about potentially explosive upgrades. Jett slumped back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. "I hate my life." The ceiling light flickered in agreement. The plan had been simple. Sneak into the casino. Get the crate. Get out. That should have been Jett's first warning. Currently, he was hanging upside down in a ventilation shaft, wedged so tightly that he could barely move. Somewhere below, an alarm was wailing, accompanied by the muffled shouting of very angry Red Knives Syndicate enforcers. "Okay," Jett muttered. "Not ideal." He twisted, trying to unjam himself, which only succeeded in making the entire duct creak ominously. He had a sneaking suspicion that if he moved too much, the whole thing would collapse, sending him crashing directly into the enemy's security office. Below him, Rhea's voice crackled over his earpiece. "Jett, are you alive?" "Define alive," he whispered back. "Because if it means not currently about to plummet into the middle of a very bad situation, then no." "No, I am not." "Great," Rhea deadpanned. "Bobby, update on security?" Bobby's voice chimed in, smooth as ever. "The casino's primary alarm system has been disabled." Jett exhaled in relief. "However," Bobby continued, "the backup alarm system has engaged, and security reinforcements are now arriving at an estimated speed of oh no, oh no, oh no." Jett groaned. "V, tell me you have the crate." A beat of silence. Then V's voice, chipper as ever. "Define have." Jett squeezed his eyes shut. "V, please tell me the crate is in your hands, and you're currently walking toward the exit with zero complications." "Well," V hedged. "It was in my hands." Jett's stomach dropped. "And it might be running." Jett opened his eyes. "I'm sorry, what?" There was a sudden burst of frantic footsteps, followed by V shouting, "Come back here, you weird little goblin." Jett let his head thunk against the side of the ventilation shaft. "Why do I even ask?" Rhea sighed over the comms. "What do you mean it's running?" "Turns out," V panted, "the crate wasn't a crate. It's a very small, very angry alien in a metal box with legs." Jett blinked. "You mean the thing we just stole is alive?" "Yes." "And it has legs?" "Yes." "And it's running loose in the casino?" V hesitated. "Well, I wouldn't say running. More like scampering, or possibly skittering. There's a lot of limbs involved." Jett felt an overwhelming urge to scream into the void. Instead, he took a slow, deep breath. "Okay, new plan." "Glad to hear it," Rhea said dryly. "Does it involve not dying?" Jett wiggled again, trying to free himself. The shaft groaned, metal straining under his weight. "Step 1. Someone catch the prince before we all get killed. Prince, Rhea repeated. He's a prince. I don't know, I just decided that if we're stealing a highly valuable sentient being, it's probably royalty. Oh, fantastic, Rhea muttered. I love that for us. Step 2, Jett continued. I get out of this ventilation shaft without plummeting to my untimely death. A loud screeching noise interrupted him. Below, V shouted, "Oh no! Oh no!" A small metallic blur shot across the casino floor, knocking over a tray of drinks and disappearing between the legs of an extremely startled gambler. The tiny escapee, a small, silver-plated alien with too many eyes and a very judgmental expression, let out an indignant, chittering noise before vanishing under a row of slot machines. V skidded into view right after it, nearly tripping over herself. I got it. I got it. She did not got it. The alien prince zigzagged between slot machines, causing absolute chaos as gamblers tripped over themselves to get away from the screaming metal creature. Security guards, momentarily caught between protecting the casino and their own survival instincts, hesitated. One particularly nervous guard made the executive decision to throw a serving tray at the prince, missing spectacularly, and instead knocking over a towering stack of casino chips. The chips rained down like a jackpot explosion, setting off multiple slot machines at once. A chorus of winning bells and flashing lights filled the room, causing a wave of excited gamblers to cheer and rush forward, unintentionally blocking security's pursuit. Jett witnessed all of this from above and muttered, "That should not have worked." "New plan," he shouted. "Run." The ventilation shaft chose that exact moment to give up on existence. With a shriek of twisting metal, it snapped free, sending Jett crashing down through the ceiling directly into the security office. He landed in a heap of limbs and regret, blinking dazedly at the surrounding very armed guards who all turned to stare at him. Jett cleared his throat. Hi." They did not say hi back. Alarms blared. Chaos erupted. Jett rolled onto his feet and bolted for the door. "I'm taking that as a nope." Outside, Rhea was already throwing a punch at the nearest security officer, while Bobby, standing very still, stared down a second guard who hesitated, unsure how to engage an opponent who refused to fight back. "I will pacify you with logic," Bobby warned, lifting a single mechanical finger. The guard looked genuinely confused. V, meanwhile, had finally tackled the alien prince, who was now wriggling furiously under her grip. "I got him. I got. Ow, he bites." Little jerk. Jett skidded out of the security office, nearly tripping over his own feet. Everyone to the ship. The crew, plus one very displeased alien prince, barreled through the casino, dodging guards, casino patrons, and at least one very angry bartender whose tray of drinks had been tragically sacrificed in the chaos. They reached the docking bay just as the Starfall's engines roared to life. Jett collapsed into the pilot's chair, gasping. The alarms inside the ship sputtered out, as if the Starfall itself was shocked they were still alive. A long silence followed. Then the alien huffed dramatically and crossed all four of his arms. Jett groaned. "Great, we stole a sarcastic prince." The universe was absolutely laughing at him now. The Starfall rocketed through hyperspace, shaking just enough to remind everyone on board that it was held together by bad decisions and cheap parts. The control panel flickered, displaying 4 different warning messages, 2 of which Jett was pretty sure were just passive-aggressive suggestions rather than actual problems. The prince sat on a crate in the middle of the cockpit, still cross-armed, still glaring. He had not said a word. Jett, who was absolutely not paid enough to deal with royal attitude, rubbed his temples. "So, just to clarify, we risked our lives, destroyed a casino, and almost got turned into decorative packaging by the Red Knives for this?" He gestured vaguely at the unimpressed alien. The prince blinked all 8 of his eyes, then slowly tilted his head like Jett was the dumbest being in the universe. "Good talk," Jett muttered. Rhea leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "All right, we need a plan. Because the second we drop out of hyperspace, we are wanted criminals in at least 3 systems." Bobby beeped. "Correction. 5 systems." The casino incident was broadcast live on the Galactic Crime Network. The running odds on our survival are currently 12 to 1 against. Jett exhaled. Fantastic. I love being famous. V plopped into a chair, inspecting the alien prince with open curiosity. So, Your Highness, got a name? A planet? A kingdom that might, I don't know, pay us for returning you? The prince continued to stare. V waved a hand in front of his face. Hello, royal dude. Anyone home? The prince let out a long, exasperated sigh. Then, in perfect galactic standard, he said, I despise all of you. A beat of silence. Jett turned to Rhea. I think he likes us. Rhea nodded solemnly. Yeah, I'm getting that vibe. V clapped her hands. Great. He talks. That means he can tell us who exactly is going to try to kill us for stealing him. The prince rolled his many eyes. I was not stolen. I was escaping. You just intervened. Jett frowned. Wait, you were escaping? Yes, the prince huffed. And now, my captors will assume I was taken by bounty hunters, which means they will hunt you down, capture you, and interrogate you until you give them answers you do not have. Another pause. Jett buried his face in his hands. I hate my life. Rhea sighed. Okay, so who exactly is after you? The prince hesitated, then admitted, my older sister. V perked up. Oh, a loving sibling reunion. How sweet. The prince's expression darkened. She once ordered an entire starship to be thrown into a sun because the crew scuffed her boots. The entire cockpit went silent. Jett finally lifted his head. So what I'm hearing is we should be very, very far away from wherever she is. Bobby beeped, tracking active bounty transmissions. She has already put a bounty on our heads. The number of bounty hunters in pursuit is approximately. Bobby's voice glitched. Then the screen froze, flashed red, and simply displayed, error, too many TO count. Jett felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. The Starfall shuddered as if it, too, had just realized how doomed they were. A proximity alarm suddenly screamed through the cockpit. Jett whipped around to the scanners. His heart dropped. Rhea swore. V let out a long, slow whistle. The entire scanner display was just a solid wall of red dots. V groaned. So, who wants to place bets on how fast we die? Jett grabbed the controls. Oh, shut up and hold on. Outside, space lit up with incoming fire. The chase was on. The Starfall was not built for high-speed chases. In fact, it wasn't built for much of anything except falling apart at the worst possible moments. As Jett yanked the controls to avoid a blast of incoming plasma fire, the ship let out a deep, unsettling groan, the kind that suggested something had just fallen off in the back. Please tell me that was something non-essential, Jett gritted out. Bobby beeped. That depends on how you define non-essential. The ship technically still functions. Technically, Rhea was already strapped into the co-pilot's seat, scanning the display. We've got at least 20 ships in pursuit. Some of them are bounty hunters, some are from the Syndicate, and I'm pretty sure one of them is just a really aggressive pizza delivery guy. V, who was upside down beneath the console, frantically reconnecting wires, grinned. Gotta respect the hustle. Jett banked the ship hard left as a missile whooshed past, missing them by inches. The explosion sent shockwaves through the hull, rattling everything that wasn't already rattling on its own. Okay, new plan. Jett shouted. We find somewhere to hide before we become space dust. The prince, who had been sitting on his crate in silent judgment, finally spoke. The asteroid field. Jett blinked. What? The prince gestured to the NAV screen, where a dense asteroid belt loomed ahead. If you are as incompetent as you appear, then your enemies will assume you would never risk navigating through it. Jett's eyes narrowed. That sounded like an insult. It was, but also a suggestion. Rhea arched a brow. He's got a point. They won't expect us to go in there. Probably because we won't survive. Fantastic. Love that for us, Jett muttered. Then, through gritted teeth, Bobby, reroute power to shields. V, do something about our engines. Rhea, pray to whatever gods you believe in. We're going in. The Starfall plunged into the asteroid field just as another blast barely missed its rear thrusters. Behind them, the pursuing ships hesitated. For a moment, Jett thought maybe, just maybe, the plan had worked. Then, Over the comms, a heavily modulated voice crackled to life. Jett Mercer. A cold dread settled in Jett's stomach. The voice was too familiar, smooth, amused, and absolutely delighted to be ruining his life. Did you really think you could escape me? The voice dripped with amusement. I must say, it's been entertaining watching you run. Jett's grip tightened on the controls. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Rhea swore. Is that? Yep. Jett groaned. Captain Vex. V peeked up from under the console. Wait, the Captain Vex? The most infamous bounty hunter in the sector? The one who really hates me? Yes, Jett confirmed. That Captain Vex. There was a chuckle over the comms. Oh, Jett, you still owe me a ship. Jett forced a smile, even though she couldn't see it. Vex, buddy pal. Fire. The Starfall rocked violently as a direct hit slammed into its rear thrusters. Jett shouted, Why is it always me? Bobby beeped. Calculating probability of survival. Don't you dare say it. Jett yanked the controls, weaving between the asteroids as Captain Vex and her ships pushed them deeper into the field. That's when it hit him. They weren't just chasing him. They were hurting him. This is a trap, he realized out loud. Correct, Vex said smoothly. And you ran straight into it. You've always been predictable, Jett. Even when you cheat at cards. Jett winced. Okay, first of all, that was one time. Vex ignored him. Now be a good boy and surrender the prince. It'll be much less painful that way. Jett gritted his teeth. We need an escape plan. Fast. V smirked. You're not going to like it. Jett let out a long sigh. Of course I won't. But let's hear it anyway. V hit a button on the console. The emergency airlock hatch suddenly opened at the rear of the ship. Jett's eyes widened. What did you just? V grinned. We dropped cargo. Rhea blinked. We don't have cargo. V's grin widened. We do now. She hit another button, and suddenly, a large crate of spare parts, scrap metal, and miscellaneous garbage launched into space behind them. For a brief second, nothing happened. Then, an explosion of debris filled the asteroid field, sending chunks of metal flying into their pursuers. Several ships swerved violently, two collided outright, and another was instantly taken out by a particularly large piece of Jett's broken coffee machine. Captain Vex's ship barely managed to dodge. You little. Jett slammed the thrusters. Time to go. The Starfall rocketed forward, dodging between asteroids, weaving through the chaos as their pursuers struggled to regain formation. The moment they broke free of the asteroid field, Jett punched the hyperdrive. The stars blurred, and just like that, they were gone. A long silence filled the ship. Then V grinned. See? Great plan. Jett stared at her. I will never forgive you for sacrificing my coffee machine. Bobby beeped. Technically, it saved our lives. Jett slumped back in his chair. Yeah, but still. R.I.P. coffee machine. You'll be missed. The prince, still seated on his crate, sighed heavily. Your incompetence is exhausting. Jett gave him a tired smile. And yet, here you are, still alive. You're welcome. The prince just rolled his eyes. Rhea leaned back with a smirk. So, Captain Vex is really not going to let this go. Jett sighed. Nope. And we've officially made it to the top of her very personal hit list. Good thing we got away, then, V said cheerfully. Bobby beeped. That is technically incorrect. Jett groaned. Oh, what now? The ship's display flickered back to life. The scanner, which had only just recovered from its earlier breakdown, showed a new set of red blips. And right in their direct flight path was a massive syndicate dreadnought, blocking their escape. A transmission came through. Mercer, you have something that belongs to us. Prepare to be boarded. Jett buried his face in his hands. I hate my life. Rhea patted his shoulder. Yeah, we know. Now, let's not die. Jett Mercer had been in a lot of bad situations, but getting tractor-beamed into a syndicate dreadnought while running on fumes and owing half the galaxy money, that was impressively bad, even for him. He briefly considered the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he should start making better life choices. Then he remembered who he was, sighed, and accepted that this was just another Tuesday. That was impressively bad, even for him. The Starfall shuddered as it was dragged into the syndicate's hangar bay, its battered hull groaning in protest. Jett slumped in his seat, letting out a long, defeated Psy. All right, before we're inevitably shot, let's take a moment to reflect on all the terrible choices that led us here. We don't have time for that, Rhea said, strapping a knife to her belt. It would take hours, Bobby added helpfully. The prince, still seated on his crate, looked unimpressed. If you attempt to fight them, you will lose. Quickly and embarrassingly. Jett spun around. Oh, fantastic. Royal wisdom. Please enlighten us, Your Highness, on how we're supposed to avoid getting ventilated by blaster fire. The prince tilted his head. You could surrender. V snorted. That's adorable. He thinks we're capable of making good choices. The ship clunked down onto the hangar floor with a final metallic groan, and the doors began to hiss open. Jett took a deep breath, adjusted his jacket, and turned to his crew. All right, idiots. Showtime. Try not to die stupidly. The moment they stepped out, 20 Syndicate enforcers pointed their weapons at them. Jett raised his hands, flashing his best, I'm too charming to kill grin. Wow, big welcome party. You guys always this friendly. The enforcers did not laugh. A figure stepped forward, a towering man with a cybernetic arm, a scarred face, and the kind of expression that suggested he hadn't smiled since the last planetary war. Mercer, the man growled. You stole from a syndicate. Jett winced. Look, stole is a strong word. More like accidentally liberated. Silence. The boss wants a word with you. The enforcers shoved them forward, leading them through the dreadnought's sterile steel corridors. Jett leaned toward V. Any brilliant escape plans? Working on it, she whispered. Step 1, don't die. Great plan. Love the originality. They were herded into a grand chamber with a massive throne-like chair in the center. Seated in it was Mela Vor, a syndicate boss known for her love of torture, extravagant fashion, and feeding people to genetically enhanced space eels. She smiled. It was not a good smile. Jett Mercer, you have something of mine. Jett opened his mouth, then paused. Doi. Because if you're talking about that thing I might have borrowed a few years ago, I assure you it was totally... Mela held up a hand. The prince. Jett blinked. Oh, right. Him. The prince, still unimpressed, folded his arms. I do not belong to you. Mela chuckled. Oh, I don't care about owning you, dear prince. I care about the ransom. Your sister? She's offering a ridiculous amount of money to get you back. And I intend to collect. Jett grimaced. Yeah, about that. Silence. I have no interest in you or your pathetic crew. Just the prince. Hand him over, and I might consider letting you walk away. Rhea tensed beside him. Bobby, ever the pacifist, simply tilted his head, calculating the least violent way to get out of this. V, meanwhile, was smiling. Jett frowned. V, why are you smiling? V whispered. Because I just had a terrible idea. Jett sighed. Of course you did. Care to share with the class? V's grin widened. We sell the prince. The prince immediately stiffened, his many eyes widening in sheer horror. You will what? Jett choked. I what? Mela raised an eyebrow. Go on. V gestured vaguely at the prince. Look, we all know he doesn't want to go home. You don't actually care about him, just the ransom. But what if we offer you something even better? Mela leaned forward, intrigued. I am listening. Jett hissed. I am so afraid right now. V ignored him. See, the prince's bounty is huge, sure, but the moment you hand him over, his sister is just going to kill everyone involved to keep things quiet. That's bad business. But if you were to, say, auction him off to the highest bidder, the royal family, rival syndicates, political enemies, you could start an entire galactic war and make 10 times the bounty. Mela's eyes gleamed. And what do you get out of this? V shrugged. A head start. Mela considered this. Then, slowly she smiled. You have 5 minutes before I change my mind. Jett didn't wait. Run. The crew bolted back toward the hangar, syndicate enforcers shouting behind them. The moment they reached the starfall, Jett slammed the emergency takeoff button. The ship roared to life, lifted off the hangar floor, and blasted out of the dreadnought at full speed. Inside, Jett wheezed. That was the dumbest plan yet. V grinned. And yet here we are. Alive. Bobby beeped. For now. The prince, looking mildly impressed for the first time, nodded. That was unexpectedly clever. Jett wiped sweat from his brow. I hate that it worked. Now, where are we going? Rhea checked the nav closest planet. Tarvos 9. Smuggler Haven. It's dangerous, lawless, and you owe people money there. Jett groaned. Fantastic. Let's go make more poor decisions. The Starfall jumped into hyperspace, heading straight for their next disaster. And by disaster, Jett had a sinking feeling that it would involve at least one bar fight, an old enemy with a grudge, and some very unfortunate gambling debts. The Starfall dropped out of hyperspace with a violent shudder, which was not reassuring. Jett smacked the side of the control panel as sparks popped out of the console. That was not a smooth landing, he muttered, glaring at the ship as if it had personally betrayed him. Technically, we didn't land, Bobby beeped. We simply stopped falling through space. Jett pinched the bridge of his nose. Fantastic. Love the optimism. From the cockpit window, Tarvos 9 sprawled out below, a planet-sized hive of crime, smuggling, and bad life choices. Rhea leaned forward, arms crossed. So what's the plan? Jett sighed. We lay low. Find supplies. Maybe, if the universe decides to not screw us over for once, figure out why our prince here is worth so much trouble. The prince, perched on a crate in the corner, tilted his head. And if I refuse to answer? Jett forced a grin. Then we sell you again. The prince blinked. You wouldn't dare. V grinned. Try us. The ship rattled as it entered the lower atmosphere. The landing was less a controlled descent and more a series of violent lurches, but they managed to touch down at a questionably legal docking bay on the outskirts of the city. Jett powered down the engines, exhaled, and turned to the crew. All right, everyone, look inconspicuous. Rhea, try not to stab anyone unless absolutely necessary. V, please do not steal anything that explodes. The crew immediately failed. Rhea cracked her knuckles menacingly. V adjusted her goggles while clearly eyeing a power relay like it was already hers, and Bobby, standing perfectly still, somehow looked even more suspicious. Jett sighed. This is going to go great. V scoffed. Wow, no faith in me at all. Bobby beeped. Historically speaking, she has stolen an exploding object in 87% of past market visits. Jett groaned. Okay, let's just get this over with. The moment they stepped into the Tarvos 9 black market, Jett immediately regretted everything. It was a chaotic labyrinth of street vendors hawking illegal weapons, questionable food, and exotic pets that were definitely sentient. The air smelled like fried mystery meat and bad decisions. I hate this place, Jett muttered. You owe money here, don't you? Rhea asked. That is not relevant at the moment. Bobby beeped. It is, however, very relevant if the individuals you owe are also present. Jett froze as a familiar, very large, and very angry-looking alien spotted him from across the market. His brain scrambled for details. Name? Unknown. Species? Too many teeth. Reason for anger? Probably gambling-related. Amount owed? Let's not think about that. Mercer, the alien bellowed, cracking 4 sets of knuckles. Jett sighed. All right, new plan, run. The chase that followed was a blur of shouting, thrown objects, and Jett sincerely regretting every gambling decision he had ever made. They ducked into a side alley, panting. Okay, Jett gasped. Change of plans. We split up, lay low, and meet back at the ship in an hour. And what do we do in the meantime? Rhea asked. Jett glanced at the prince. We get answers. The prince sighed. You truly are insufferable. Jett grinned. Yeah. Now talk. Why does your sister want you back so badly? The prince hesitated. Then, finally, he said, because I'm the key to an ancient weapon. Silence. Jett blinked. Rhea exhaled through her nose. V's eyes lit up like a kid in a weapons store. Oh, Vig, he spit it. That's bad. Silence. V slowly leaned in. Oh, that's bad. Jett groaned. Fantastic. Just fantastic. Jett stared at the prince, hoping he had misheard. I'm sorry. An ancient weapon? Could you repeat that? Maybe with less imminent doom. He mentally added this to his ever-growing list of terrible things that should not involve me, but somehow do. Right between accidentally marrying a crime boss's niece and that time with the space sharks. Maybe with less imminent doom. The prince sighed, rubbing his temples like he was the one dealing with idiots. Yes, an ancient weapon, a failsafe from my ancestors' time. My DNA is required to activate it. Jett groaned. Why is it never something simple, like an inheritance dispute? Or a lost cat? Rhea crossed her arms. So if your sister gets her hands on you, she gains control of a weapon that could shift the balance of power across the galaxy. The prince finished. V whistled. Oh, that's catastrophic. Jett ran a hand down his face. All right, fine, great. We are in so much trouble. But before we panic, we should absolutely panic, Bobby beeped. Before we panic louder, we need a plan, Jett continued. Something to keep us alive long enough to get rid of this problem. V clapped her hands. Ooh, I've got it. What if we pretend to turn the prince in? The prince's expression immediately soured, his many eyes narrowing. I regret every second I've spent in your company. Jett blinked. I hate how much sense that makes. We stage a fake deal, V explained. We leak intel that we're selling the prince to the highest bidder. Lure in your enemies, get them all in one place, and let them kill each other off while we escape. Rhea considered it. High risk, but if it works, we take out multiple problems at once. The prince scowled. I dislike this idea. Jett clapped him on the back. Welcome to my life, Your Highness. We do a lot of things we dislike. How exactly do you plan on making this believable? Rhea asked, skeptical. Because right now, we're a crew of broke idiots flying a ship that's one malfunction away from spontaneous explosion. Not exactly convincing galactic arms dealers. V grinned. We go big. Real big. We forge an auction invite, spread the word across every crime hub, bounty hunter network, and syndicate channel we can find. We don't just sell the prince, we start a bidding war. Bobby beeped. Calculating success probability. 17%. Jett snorted. Wow, better than most of our plans. Let's do it. The prince's many eyes twitched. Let me be perfectly clear. I do not consent to this. Noted, Jett said. Ignoring that, Rhea smirked. And where exactly do we hold this fake auction? Jett hesitated. Somewhere public, high profile, with enough neutral ground laws to keep everyone from just shooting each other immediately. V gasped. Oh, I know just the place. Vornak Station. The cockpit fell silent. Jett rubbed his temples. The Vornak Station that is currently hosting the biggest crime lord gala in the sector? That one. V beamed. Yep, a perfect place for illegal deals. Plus, open bar. Jett groaned. We're going to die. V rubbed her hands together. Let's go start a galactic bidding war. What could possibly go wrong? Jett adjusted the collar of his only semi-respectable jacket, which hadn't actually been respectable in years. Unless respectable included burn marks, mysterious stains, and a rip that was definitely blaster-related. As he stepped onto the main promenade of Vornak Station, an orbital palace of crime, corruption, and questionable fashion choices. The station was packed. Crime lords, smugglers, mercenaries, and bounty hunters strolled through the lavish halls, pretending they weren't all actively plotting each other's downfall. Chandeliers made of stolen starship parts hung above, while guards in unnecessarily extravagant armor loomed at every corner. Jett exhaled. Okay, remember the plan. We act confident. We make this auction look real, and most importantly, we don't die. Rhea finished. Yeah. Heard you the first 10 times. I still think we could have chosen a less suicidal location. The prince muttered, adjusting the expensive cuffs V had insisted he wear. If my sister tracks me here. She won't, V said, waving a hand dismissively. Probably. Before the prince could protest further, a deep voice boomed across the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the most exclusive auction of the decade. Jett turned toward the source of the voice. Bobby, standing behind a makeshift podium V had set up way too fast. A large, holographic banner flickered above him, displaying exclusive auction, royalty for sale. Only the wealthiest survive. Jett pinched the bridge of his nose. V, why does that sound way worse than what we agreed on? V beamed. Marketing. Jett turned back to the room, where hundreds of extremely dangerous people were now eyeing them with greedy, murderous interest. Okay, Jett muttered. New plan. We wrap this up fast and get out before someone figures out we're bluffing. Bobby cleared his throat. The bidding starts at 10 million credits. Do I hear 12? A syndicate boss raised a hand. 15. A pirate queen leaned forward. 20. A bounty hunter sneered. 50. Jett felt a bead of sweat roll down his temple. This was working way too well. Jett, Rhea whispered. We might have a problem. Bigger than the current problem? She subtly nodded toward the far end of the hall. A new group had just arrived, wearing royal insignias. The prince stiffened. That's my sister's elite guard. If they're here, the room fell deathly silent. Conversations halted. Even the most hardened criminals instinctively took a step back, as if sensing something far worse than their usual rivals. Then, a new voice cut through the room, icy and amused. Then I'm here too. The entire crowd turned as Princess Azara stepped into the auction hall. Azara was taller, stronger, and infinitely more terrifying than her younger brother. Her silver armor gleamed under the artificial light, and the air around her felt 10 degrees colder. She smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Well, what do we have here? My dear, idiot brother, selling himself like a common trinket? She tilted her head. I should have known you'd end up in the hands of criminals. Jett slowly raised his hands. Now, let's not do anything. Azara raised a hand. The entire hall erupted into chaos. Blasters fired. Tables flipped. Syndicate bosses screamed about being scammed. Someone threw a chandelier. Jett grabbed the prince and ran. Abort! Abort! The prince, being dragged along, barely managed a breathless. Could we not? I have dignity. Yeah? Well, now you have velocity. Move! Jett shot back as blaster fire erupted behind them. A syndicate boss stood up, slamming his fist on the table. I demand to know what kind of scam this. V hit a detonator. Half the hall exploded. Jett's eyes widened. Why do you have explosives? V grinned. It's a backup plan. It's a war crime. The crew sprinted toward the docking bay, weaving through the chaos. Behind them, Azara and her guards pushed through the smoke. We're not going to make it, Rhea shouted. Bobby beeped. Correction, we have a 6% chance of survival. Jett grabbed the prince's arm and slammed a button on his wrist. The prince blinked. Then he vanished. Rhea's eyes widened. Did you just teleport him? Jett grinned. Sent him straight to the starfall. Now let's go. They dove into the ship, just as Azara's guards opened fire. Jett slammed the hatch shut and shouted, Punch it! The starfall blasted out of the station, dodging turret fire. Alarms blared across Vornak as the crew shot into hyperspace. Jett collapsed in his seat, panting. Okay, that could have gone worse. A long, painful silence followed. The ship still rattled from the sheer absurdity of what had just happened. Bobby beeped. Statistically, it could not. The prince, now sprawled across a crate, groaned. I despise all of you. Jett grinned. Yeah, you're welcome. Next stop? Anywhere that isn't here. Jett had been in a lot of bad situations before, but sitting in the cockpit of the Starfall, staring at a fleet of syndicate warships now blocking their only escape route, he had to admit this was spectacularly bad. And considering his past included outrunning tax collectors in a stolen escape pod and that one time with the sentient squid casino, that was saying something. He had to admit this was spectacularly bad. Rhea groaned. Let me guess. You owe the money too. Okay, first of all, Jett said, pointing a finger. Rude. Second of all, yes. But that's not the problem. The problem is they want the prince too. The prince sighed. Of course they do. Why wouldn't they? Bobby beeped. Incoming transmission. I predict an aggressive conversation. The ship's console flickered, and a massive hologram of Mela Vor, the syndicate boss from earlier, appeared. She did not look pleased. Mercer, Mela said, voice dripping with murderous intent. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Jett forced a smile. Look, Mela, I can explain. No, you can't. Shut up. Give me the prince, or I blast your ship into atoms. Jett exhaled, rubbing his temples. You see, that's a very reasonable offer, and under normal circumstances, I would totally consider it. But unfortunately, we've already got his extremely violent sister on our tail. And if you think you're scary, Azara makes you look like a children's entertainer. So really, I'm doing you a favor by not handing him over. Mayla's eyes narrowed. She tilted her head slightly, as if genuinely impressed by the sheer audacity. Then, with a slow blink and a razor-sharp smile, she said, "You just insulted me and asked for mercy in the same breath." Jett nodded. "Yeah, that's kind of my thing." Mayla smiled. It was not a good smile. "Kill them." The transmission cut out. Jett sighed. "Okay, cool. We're all gonna die. Any objections?" "I have an objection," V said, already flipping switches. "We run. Fast." "That's not an objection," Jett muttered, but he gunned the engines anyway. The starfall jerked violently as plasma bolts streaked past, Syndicate fighters swarming in formation. The ship's alarm systems blared, though Jett was pretty sure at least 2 of them had been broken for years and were just screaming in solidarity. "Shields at 20%, Bobby warned. "Hull integrity actively deteriorating." "I noticed," Jett snapped, yanking the controls to avoid another blast. "Anyone got a brilliant plan? Because I'm fresh out." V grinned. "I have a terrible plan." Jett groaned. "Of course you do. See that abandoned cargo hauler?" V pointed at a derelict, massive freighter floating just ahead. "If we fly close enough, the Syndicate won't risk firing. Too much collateral damage. And if they fire anyway?" V shrugged. "Then we die." Jett grimaced. "Great. Love the confidence. Let's do it." The starfall veered hard, skimming dangerously close to the cargo hauler's rusted hull. As predicted, the Syndicate fighters hesitated, but only for a moment. Then, Azara's warship dropped out of hyperspace. A collective groan filled the cockpit. Jett let his head thunk against the console. No. Rhea exhaled. "Does she have, like, a tracking chip on us?" V raised a finger. "Ooh, maybe she's psychically linked to the prince. That would be fun." The prince glared. "That is not a thing." "Shame," V muttered. "Would have been cool." Jett's stomach plummeted. "Oh, come on." Azara's voice boomed through the comms. "Enough running, Mercer. Surrender the prince. Now." "Or," Jett said, "crazy idea, I don't." Azara's ship opened fire. The cargo hauler took the hit instead and exploded spectacularly. Jett's eyes widened. Oh, that was not part of the plan. A shockwave blasted through space, sending Syndicate ships spinning out of control. The starfall was flung violently off course, tumbling toward a nearby moon. "I hate everything," Jett muttered, wrestling the controls. Bobby beeped. "Brace for impact. This will be unpleasant." The starfall hurtled into the moon's upper atmosphere, its engines screaming in protest. "This is not a landing," Jett yelled. They crashed. Everything went dark. Jett groaned, blinking up at the wreckage of his ship. Smoke curled from the consoles. The lights flickered weakly. "Well," Rhea muttered. "That went well." The prince coughed, sitting up. "Where are we?" Bobby scanned the surroundings. Unknown moon. No immediate threats detected. Oxygen levels stable. V, covered in soot but way too cheerful for someone who had just survived a crash, clapped her hands. Rhea shot her a glare. Jett groaned and let his head fall back against the wreckage. The prince just buried his face in his hands. None of it seemed to faze V in the slightest. Okay, so that could have been worse. Jett gave her a deadpan look. How exactly? A shadow loomed over them. The crew turned. Jett felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up before he even heard the footsteps. A strange hush settled over the wreckage, broken only by the crackling of burnt-out circuits. Rhea tensed. V for once stopped grinning. Even Bobby's optics flickered in what could only be described as robotic unease. Slowly they turned. A dozen heavily armed bounty hunters stood at the edge of the wreckage, weapons raised. One of them grinned. "Hello, Mercer. You've got a lot of bounties on your head. And today, we're collecting." Jett sighed, lying back against the smoking console. "Yeah, that tracks." Jett had exactly 3 seconds to process the fact that he was about to be arrested again. His brain briefly entertained the idea of negotiating, maybe even talking his way out of it. Then V threw a smoke grenade at the bounty hunter's feet. "Run!" she shouted, already grabbing the prince by the arm and sprinting into the wreckage. Blaster fire erupted through the smoke. Jett dived behind a half-buried piece of Starfall's hull, Rhea rolling beside him. "Do you ever not escalate things immediately?" Jett wheezed. "No," V called back, way too cheerful for someone currently being actively shot at. Bobby beeped. "Tactical analysis. We are going to die." Jett yanked him down before a plasma bolt could remove his head. Less analysis, more running. They bolted through the wreckage, dodging between smoking debris and half-melted ship parts. Behind them, the bounty hunters were fanning out, weapons raised. The lead hunter, a scarred reptilian with a jetpack and too much confidence, barked orders. "Surround them. The prince is worth triple if he's alive." Jett gritted his teeth. "Oh great, now I'm worth less than the cargo. Love that for me." The prince, despite running for his life, managed to shoot him a withering look. "That is the first correct observation you've made all day." "Split up," Rhea ordered, vaulting over a chunk of wreckage and disappearing into the ruins. "That's a terrible idea," Jett called after her. "Do you have a better one?" "No, but I reserve the right to be bitter about it." They scattered, V dragging the prince toward the cliffs, Rhea disappearing into the wreckage, and Jett scrambling up a crumbling metal support beam as blaster fire exploded around him. "All right, thank Mercer," he muttered. "How do we not get murdered today?" He reached the top of the wreckage and froze. The bounty hunters had brought a ship. A sleek, heavily armed drop cruiser sat nestled in a clearing below, its ramp still open. Several more hunters stood guard around it. Jett's brain did the math. Big ship. Fust. Currently unlocked. Jett grinned. "Oh, that's a terrible idea. I love it." He tapped his comlink. "V, how do you feel about Grand Theft Starship?" V's voice crackled back. "Is that a rhetorical question? Because I feel amazing about it." "Then let's steal us a getaway ride." Jett jumped from the wreckage, landing hard with a grunt. His boots skidded on loose metal, forcing him to throw out an arm for balance before he could regain his footing and bolt toward the cruiser. Rhea, who had just emerged from cover, stared. "We're stealing their ship. Would you rather walk?" "Fair point." Jett slid behind a stack of cargo crates, watching the bounty hunters patrol. "All right, we need a distraction." V's voice came over the comms. "Don't worry, I got this." Jett paled. "Oh no." A loud boom shook the ground. The bounty hunters whipped around as a fireball erupted from their parked speeder bikes. Jett sighed. Of course she blew something up. "You're welcome." V cackled. The guards rushed toward the explosion, leaving the ramp unguarded. Jett and Rhea sprinted for the ship, Bobby rolling beside them. The prince, who had somehow managed to keep his royal dignity despite all the screaming, swept past them with an unimpressed expression. "This is not a plan. This is chaos. Buddy around here?" "That's the same thing," Jett yelled. They stormed up the ramp just as the first guards realized what was happening. Plasma bolts sizzled past Jett's head as he slammed the hatch controls. "V, get us airborne." V slid into the pilot's chair, flipping switches at alarming speed. "Oh, this thing has missiles. I love it already." The cruiser lurched upward, thrusters roaring as it lifted off. The remaining bounty hunters scrambled for cover, shouting into their radios. Jett collapsed into a seat. Well, that went better than expected. Silence. The crew just stared at him. "What?" Jett asked. "We didn't die. That's an improvement." Rhea rubbed her temples. "That is not the standard we should be setting." Bobby beeped. Clarification. It went only slightly better than expected. The prince crossed his arms. "So where exactly are we going?" His tone was half annoyed, half mildly intrigued, like he couldn't decide whether to be furious or impressed by the sheer absurdity of what had just happened. Jett exhaled, staring at the stars ahead. "Anywhere but here." V grinned. "Let's go break more laws." The stolen cruiser shot into hyperspace. The stolen cruiser shot out of hyperspace with a jolt, rattling as if it, too, regretted being involved in this disaster. Jett slumped in the pilot's chair, staring at the blinking warning lights on the console. Every ship he ever flew eventually reached this stage, beeping, flashing, and generally screaming for help, much like his life choices. "Okay, first priority, figure out where we are." Second priority, figure out who wants to kill us next. Bobby beeped. Correction, those priorities are identical. That is deeply concerning, the prince muttered, arms still crossed as he gazed out at the unfamiliar star system. Are you even capable of going anywhere safe? In theory, Jett said, but it's more of a suggestion than a lifestyle. Rhea scowled at the flickering NAV screen. So where are we? V kicked her feet up on the console, chewing on a ration bar. The prince gave her a look of pure disbelief, while Jett rubbed his temples, clearly resisting the urge to throw her out the nearest airlock. Somewhere off the map trade routes. I may have randomized our jump coordinates. Jett stared at her. You what? Hey, it's a great anti-tracking technique. Also, I panicked. The prince let out a slow, exasperated breath. So we could be anywhere in the galaxy? V nodded. Yup. Exciting, right? Exciting is not the word I would use. Bobby beeped, detecting a nearby planet with breathable atmosphere. No signs of immediate hostility. Jett perked up. A planet without people actively trying to kill us? Sounds fake, but I'm willing to believe in miracles. Rhea cracked her knuckles. Touchdown, get supplies, and don't get into trouble. Absolutely. No trouble whatsoever, Jett said solemnly. V snorted. Yeah, that'll last 5 minutes. Minutes later, the cruiser touched down in a dusty clearing, its engines letting out a noise somewhere between a sigh and a death rattle. Jett winced. That sounded expensive. He stepped on his solid ground, stretching out his sore muscles. The air was dry, warm, and smelled vaguely of something metallic. Not exactly welcoming, but at least breathable. The landscape stretched into rolling dunes and jagged cliffs. The sky a murky orange-red, with twin suns beating down relentlessly. Rhea frowned at the skyline. I don't trust it. Bobby beeped. Probability of eventual gunfire, 97%. Hey, optimism, Jett muttered. We're overdue for an uneventful pit stop. The prince surveyed the landscape with an unimpressed gaze. And where exactly do you plan to find supplies in this wasteland? V pulled out a pair of scavenger goggles, adjusting them over her eyes. Oh, there's a settlement not far from here. Jett narrowed his eyes. How do you know that? V grinned and pointed behind him. Because they're already coming this way. Jett turned. Sure enough, a convoy of rusted-out speeders and heavily armed riders was kicking up a cloud of dust, heading straight for them. A distant explosion rumbled from the horizon. Silence. Jett slowly turned back to the crew. Maybe it was just a friendly explosion? V grinned. Oh good, there it is. Jett groaned. I hate this job. Jett had seen enough unfriendly welcomes in his life to know when one was coming. In fact, he had a personal rule. If people approached with weapons out and grins wider than their morality, things were about to go horribly wrong. And judging by the way the dust-covered speeders were barreling toward them with mounted blasters and way too much enthusiasm, this was definitely one of those times. I vote we get back on the ship and leave. Jett announced. Engines are still cooling, Bobby beeped. Also, landing struts appear to be stuck. Rhea cursed. So what? We just stand here and get shot. V, already grinning, pulled down her scavenger goggles. The prince eyed her like one might regard an unhinged wild animal, with a mix of fear and exasperation. Oh, relax. Let's see what they want before we start panicking. I'm very much panicking. Jett snapped. The lead speeder skidded to a halt just meters away, sending a wave of sand and dust over the crew. A towering man in scavenged armor hopped off, followed by several equally unpleasant-looking riders. Well, the leader said, a grin spreading across his scarred face. What do we have here? Fresh meat? We're just idiots. Jett raised a hand. I'd like to formally reject both options. The man chuckled. You're on our land, strangers. That means you follow our rules. And rule number 1, everything you have belongs to us. Jett sighed. Of course it does. The prince, standing stiffly behind the group, muttered, I am beginning to suspect we should have let me choose our destination. Too late for regrets, Your Highness, V whispered. The leader took a step forward. So let's make this easy. Weapons, supplies, whatever's in that stolen cruiser of yours, hand it over. And maybe, just maybe, we won't shoot you where you stand. Jett glanced at Rhea, who was already cracking her knuckles. I have a counter-offer, Jett said. How about we keep our stuff? And in return, we don't embarrass you in front of your friends. The leader's grin widened. Oh, I like you. You're stupid. V patted Jett's shoulder. See? You're making friends. The leader turned to his crew. Kill the smartass first. Jett groaned. There it is. Chaos erupted. Blasters fired. Rhea lunged forward, knocking two riders flat with a well-placed kick. V, laughing way too much, rolled under a speeder and reappeared with someone's stolen power cell, which immediately caused their vehicle to explode spectacularly. Jett, meanwhile, was doing what he did best, dodging, running, and screaming. He was starting to think he should just put that on his business card. Jett Mercer, professional disaster avoidance specialist. Bobby, do something, he shouted as he ducked behind a crate. Bobby beeped, deploying diplomatic countermeasures. The droid ejected a series of stun grenades directly into the enemy ranks. Jett's eyes widened. Wait, since when do we have those? Since 5 minutes ago, Bobby replied. The battlefield erupted in blinding flashes, sending several raiders crashing into each other. Nice work, Bobby, V called. Appreciation registered, Bobby beeped. The leader, now furious and singed, grabbed Jett by the collar. You little. Hi, Jett said weakly. Before the leader could react, the prince stepped forward, eyes narrowing. Release him. Now. The leader hesitated, something flashing across his expression. Recognition. Jett blinked. Wait, do you know him? The leader's grip loosened slightly. You're him. Him who? Rhea demanded. The leader took a step back, glancing at his men. The tension in the air shifted, the bloodlust replaced with something calculated, cautious. Stand down. We're taking them to the boss. Jett exhaled. Well, that's not ominous at all. The raiders lowered their weapons, their hostility replaced with something else, wary respect. Jett glanced at the prince. Okay, so before we go with these completely untrustworthy strangers, do you want to explain what just happened? The prince straightened. No. Jett sighed. Yeah, I figured. As they were herded toward the settlement, Jett turned to Rhea. So, scale of 1 to 10, how bad do you think this is going to be? Rhea shrugged. Honestly, feels like a solid 12. Jett groaned. Fantastic. This was exactly what I was hoping for today. Random thugs taking us to their mysterious overlord. Love that. Jett was really starting to hate this planet. He was also starting to suspect that planets hated him back, given how often he found himself in situations like this. The raiders marched them through a sprawling junkyard settlement, a chaotic mess of rusted-out speeders, scavenged starship hulls, and several buildings that looked like they'd collapse if someone sneezed too hard. The air smelled like burnt metal, engine grease, and bad life choices. Friendly place, Jett muttered. Feels like home. That's deeply concerning, the prince said, eyeing the questionable architecture with suspicion. The raider leader led them toward the biggest structure, a makeshift fortress cobbled together from salvaged ship parts. The massive doors groaned open, revealing a dimly lit hall filled with bounty hunters, mercenaries, and people who probably considered showering optional. At the far end of the hall, seated on what could only be described as a throne made of welded-together blasters, was a woman. She was tall, scarred, and wore a long coat that had clearly seen better days. Her cybernetic arm hummed faintly, its fingers twitching like it was impatient to break something or someone. A massive cybernetic arm rested on the armrest of her throne, its fingers lazily tapping against the metal. She looked down at them with a smirk that immediately made Jett uneasy. Mercer, she drawled. I'd say it's been a while, but honestly, I was hoping it'd be never. Jett blinked. Wait, do I know you? The woman raised an eyebrow. You stole my ship 3 years ago. Jett's stomach dropped. His brain scrambled. Oh, right? Good to see you again. How've you been? Rhea sighed. Of course you did. V gave Jett a thumbs up. Nice. Classic Mercer. The woman leaned forward. And now you show up on my planet, dragging royalty and blowing up my men? Give me one reason I shouldn't mount your head on my wall. Jett swallowed hard. Because I have a really nice head? The room was painfully silent. Then the woman burst out laughing. Jett blinked. Oh, thank the stars, I thought that was about to. She cut him off with a wave of her metal hand. Shut up. I haven't decided if I'm killing you yet. Jett nodded quickly. Shutting up. She turned her gaze to the prince. And you didn't expect to see your kind all the way out here. The prince stood tall, his expression unreadable. And yet, here we are. The woman grinned. I like him. He's got attitude. Shame your bounty is worth more than my entire operation. Jett cleared his throat. So, speaking of that, how about we don't do the whole turning us in for credits thing? The woman smirked. And why shouldn't I? Jett hesitated. Because we can make you richer? She leaned back. You've got 60 seconds. Talk fast. Jett's brain short-circuited. He needed a plan. A good plan. Or at least a plan that wouldn't get them immediately shot. He stalled with the only thing he knew, fast-talking nonsense. Okay, so, you could turn us in for quick credits, sure. But what if we offered you something better? Like, say, a share in the biggest con this sector has ever seen. Rhea groaned. Oh no. V grinned. Oh yes. The woman narrowed her eyes. I'm listening. Jett took a deep breath. How do you feel about stealing from the syndicate? Silence. Then, the woman smiled. A slow, calculating smile. Around the room, the mercenaries exchanged glances. A few leaned in, intrigued. Others just tightened their grips on their weapons. Now that sounds interesting. Jett had exactly 3 regrets at the moment. 1. Suggesting they rob the syndicate in front of a room full of people who regularly commit war crimes for fun. 2. Not coming up with a better plan before opening his mouth. 3. That he hadn't eaten lunch yet, and this was definitely going to take a while. 1. Suggesting they rob the syndicate in front of a room full of people who regularly commit war crimes for fun. 2. Not coming up with a better plan before opening his mouth. The woman on the throne, Captain Raina Voss, as Jett's memory finally supplied, leaned forward, cybernetic fingers tapping against the metal armrest. Her expression remained unreadable, which was deeply concerning because Jett needed her to be very readable right now. Stealing from the syndicate is a great way to end up spaced, Raina said finally. You planning on telling me why I shouldn't just turn you in and collect the prince's bounty? Jett flashed his best don't kill me smile. Because what we're planning is way bigger than a simple bounty. We're talking a score so insane it'll make you richer than every syndicate boss combined. Raina raised an eyebrow. You're bluffing. Absolutely, Jett admitted. But that doesn't make it any less exciting. V clapped. Oh, I like this plan already. Sight. We don't have a plan yet. Technicality, Jett said. We have half a plan. We just need Raina's resources to pull it off. Raina exhaled, rubbing her temples. Tell me. Jett took a breath. We steal from a syndicate vault on Nova Prime. The room fell deathly silent. Even the mercenaries who had previously looked half-bored were now giving Jett expressions ranging from shock to amusement to outright disbelief. One of them actually snorted, shaking his head. I give him 10 minutes before the syndicate vaporizes him. One bounty hunter coughed. Did he just say Nova Prime? He did. Another muttered. Idiot. Raina let out a low whistle. You do realize that Nova Prime is one of the most heavily fortified planets in the galaxy, right? Jett adjusted his collar, trying very hard to look more confident than he felt. Oh, absolutely. I just choose not to think about that part. She leaned back, watching Jett with mild fascination. And that the syndicate's vault is buried under a literal fortress guarded by an army? I do realize that, Jett said. And I also realize that you're the only person insane enough to help us pull it off. Raina grinned. That might be the first honest thing you've said all day. The prince, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. This is a terrible plan. Jett patted his shoulder. Welcome to how we operate. Raina stood, rolling her shoulders. All right, Mercer, you've got my attention. But if I'm going to risk my entire operation for your little stunt, I need more than promises. I need an angle. Jett grinned. Good news. We've got one. Raina crossed her arms. Oh, Jett's grin widened. We're going to break into the syndicate vault during their own gala. Silence. A chair creaked. Someone coughed. Somewhere in the back, a glass clinked. Then, silence. V gasped. I love this plan. Rhea groaned. Oh, I hate this plan. The prince buried his face in his hands. I wish I was anywhere else. Reyna threw back her head and laughed. V grinned like a kid in a candy store. Rhea looked like she was reconsidering every life decision that had led her here. The prince, meanwhile, simply closed his eyes, probably praying for an escape pod. All right, Mercer, she said, cracking her knuckles. You've got yourself a crew. Let's go steal from the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. This is a terrible idea. Jett sighed. Terrible ideas are our whole brand, Your Highness. You keep saying that like it's going to change anything, Jett muttered as he adjusted the cuffs of his borrowed tuxedo. The outfit was way too tight, and he was about one forced deep breath away from losing circulation to his entire torso. The crew stood in a dimly lit cargo hold aboard a luxury cruiser en route to Nova Prime, the heart of Syndicate operations. The ship was currently hosting the biggest crime lord gala of the year, which meant every underworld mogul, assassin, and power-hungry lunatic was gathered in one place. I'd like to formally state, the prince said, arms crossed, that this is an incomprehensibly bad idea. And yet, here you are, Your Highness, V said cheerfully, tightening the strap on her disguised holster. Looking very royal in that suit, by the way. The prince scowled but didn't deny it. Rhea cracked her knuckles. Let's just get this over with. Reyna, looking far too relaxed for someone about to rob the syndicate, leaned against a crate. All right, Mercer, walk me through it. Jett took a breath. Simple. We blend in, don't get noticed, and while the criminals are busy inflating their egos, we sneak into the vault, steal the payload, and leave before anyone notices. He paused. I mean, theoretically. In practice, we're probably going to cause a scene, make someone very angry, and have to escape in the dumbest way possible. And what's our backup plan when this all goes horribly wrong? Reyna asked. Jett sighed. You run, you scream, you hope for the best. Bobby beeped. Statistically speaking, we will require 3 backup plans. Jett nodded solemnly. Great. We have 0, but I do have an unshakable belief in dumb luck. That counts, right? Jett patted the droid's head. Good thing we have none. The ship's intercom crackled to life. Now arriving at Nova Prime Orbital Station. All guests, please prepare for docking procedures. Jett straightened his bow tie, already regretting everything. How was it that, no matter where they went in the galaxy, he always ended up wearing uncomfortable clothes and running for his life? All right, people, look fancy, act rich, and for the love of the stars, try not to get us killed. Jett had one job, blend in. It was a simple job, a reasonable job, a job that, deep down, he knew was never going to happen. Unfortunately, subtlety was not his strong suit. The luxury ballroom aboard the Nova Prime Syndicate station was a monument to excess. Chandeliers made of stolen crystal from a demolished moon bathed the room in golden light. Servers carried trays of exotic drinks worth more than Jett's ship and the guests. All criminals, warlords, and corporate overlords oozed power and danger. Jett adjusted his too-tight tuxedo and did his best impression of a man who belonged here. Across the room, a well-dressed syndicate enforcer gave him a slow, suspicious once-over. Great. He was already failing. He probably would have gotten away with it too, if not for the fact that V had already stolen 3 canapes, an expensive-looking fork, and a tiny statue that was almost definitely cursed. Put that back, Jett hissed. No, V said, stuffing the statue into her jacket. Rhea took a sip of her drink and sighed. We've been here 4 minutes, and we're already breaking things. Correction, Bobby beeped. V is breaking things. Statistically, the rest of you will catch up shortly. I appreciate the vote of confidence, Jett muttered. Their goal was simple. Locate the syndicate vault, disable security, and steal a ridiculous amount of money before anyone noticed. Easy. Jett scanned the room, eyes settling on a heavily guarded corridor at the far end of the ballroom. There. That's our way in. Great, Reyna said. Step 1, distraction. Step 2, we walk in like we own the place. Jett sighed. I hate step 1. V clapped. Oh, I love step 1. That's what I'm afraid of. Before Jett could physically restrain her, he saw it. the telltale gleam in V's eyes that meant disaster was imminent. He reached out too late as she grabbed a glass of absurdly expensive liquor, climbed onto an auctioneer's display table, and shouted, "Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you that someone here is a liar and a cheat." Climbed onto an auctioneer's display table and shouted, "Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you that someone here is a liar and a cheat." The room froze. Jett froze. Reyna downed her entire drink. The prince groaned. "What is she doing?" "Improvising," Rhea muttered, rubbing her temples. A syndicate crime boss, clearly offended despite not knowing what was happening, straightened his cuffs and narrowed his eyes. "This is an outrage," he declared, mostly because someone else had declared it first. Then, after a beat, his expression darkened. "Wait, am I the liar and cheat?" Slammed his glass down. "Who dares accuse us of dishonor?" V grinned. "You know what you did." Absolute chaos erupted. Blasters were drawn. Accusations were shouted. Someone threw a chair. A waiter dove under a table. A wealthy crime lord who had absolutely nothing to do with this flipped an entire buffet table in apparent solidarity. Jett sighed and tugged at his collar. "Well, step one's done. Step two?" Reyna asked. Jett cracked his knuckles. "We walk in like we own the place." Jett had anticipated some chaos. Maybe a minor misunderstanding. A reasonable amount of chaos. But deep down, he also knew this crew was physically incapable of that. Maybe a few heated words. A light scuffle at worst. What he got instead was full-scale war. Blaster fire crisscrossed the ballroom as syndicate crime lords, bounty hunters, and assorted criminals took offense to something, everything, or nothing at all. One man overturned a table just for dramatic effect. Another was using a priceless art sculpture as a shield. A chandelier was on fire. No one knew how or why, but Jett had a sinking suspicion that V had been involved. Jett grabbed V by the arm and yanked her out of the way of a stray plasma bolt. What exactly was the plan here? To cause a distraction. V yelled, beaming. "Look, it's working." Jett dodged another blast. "V, this is not a distraction. This is a small-scale planetary crisis." Semantics. Rhea appeared beside them, kicking a syndicate enforcer square in the chest and sending him flying into a buffet table. "Are we going to vault, or are we just committing to the full-bar fight?" Reyna shot a guard mid-sip of her stolen drink. The prince gaped. She didn't even pause. Jett muttered, "I'm not sure if I should be impressed or terrified." "We multitask." The prince, who had somehow remained untouched in the chaos, crossed his arms. "I'd like to state, for the record, that I hate all of you." "Noted. Moving on." Jett barked, leading the group toward the heavily guarded corridor they had zero chance of sneaking through unnoticed. Two syndicate guards stood in their way, plasma rifles raised. "Nobody passes." Reyna shot both of them in the kneecaps before they could finish. Jett winced. "Well, that's one way to do it." The group rushed through the corridor, dodging alarms that were definitely screaming about their presence. As they neared the vault, Bobby beeped an alert. "Warning! Security measures include reinforced blast doors, biometric scanners, and an automated turret system." Jett groaned. "Great. Anything not actively trying to kill us?" Bobby beeped. "No. Figured." V clapped. "Oh, let me handle this." Jett hesitated. "Why do I feel like your version of handling this involves explosions?" V gasped. "I am offended. You think I solve all my problems with explosions?" Rhea folded her arms. "Don't you?" V considered this. "Okay, yeah, but in my defense, it usually works." Before Jett could argue, the distant sound of reinforcements arriving echoed down the hall. Jett sighed. He pinched the bridge of his nose. He really didn't want to say it, but the alarms were blaring, the reinforcements were coming, and, statistically speaking, everything was already on fire anyway. "Fine. Blow it up." V cheered and set to work. Jett turned to Reyna. "We are never getting invited to one of these again." Reyna smirked. "Did you want an invitation?" "Fair point." With a final beep, V pressed the detonator. The vault exploded. The shockwave sent Jett and the others stumbling back, debris raining from the ceiling. The alarms doubled in intensity, as if screaming, "Congratulations, you have made things much worse." Jett had exactly 3 seconds to appreciate the vault explosion, a moment of pure, chaotic beauty. Then the smoke cleared, and reality hit him like a poorly timed asteroid impact. "Well, that worked," V said cheerfully, brushing debris off her jacket. "Define worked," Jett muttered, coughing as smoke filled the hallway. Alarms blared in 3 different warning tones, which felt excessive even by Syndicate standards. The vault door, or what was left of it, hung in a molten, crumpled mess, exposing the gleaming treasures within. Credits, artifacts, data drives filled with extremely illegal secrets. Jett's heart raced. "All right, grab what you can in." Intruders detected. Deploying response units. Jett froze. "Oh, come on." Behind him, something burst into flames for absolutely no reason. Panels in the ceiling hissed open, and gunmetal gray security droids dropped into formation, their glowing red optics locking onto the crew. "Well, this is unfortunate," Bobby beeped. Reyna shot the nearest droid in the face before Jett could finish panicking. "We need an exit now." "I had an exit plan," Jett protested, ducking behind a toppled shelf as plasma bolts whizzed past. And then V blew it up. "You're welcome," V called, using a priceless Syndicate sculpture as a makeshift shield. Rhea, who was single-handedly dismantling a droid with her bare hands, shouted, "Less whining, more escaping." Jett peeked around the wreckage, scanning for an alternative way out. The Syndicate vault was big, too big to have just one entrance. Then he saw it, a maintenance tunnel near the back wall, partially hidden behind a stack of unmarked crates. "There," Jett pointed. Through that tunnel, the prince, who had spent most of this chaos gracefully avoiding death, narrowed his eyes. "How do we know where it leads?" Jett shrugged. "We don't, but it's away from here." "Good enough," Reyna muttered, shooting another droid. The crew sprinted for the tunnel, dodging blaster fire. As they reached the opening, V paused, staring at a locked Syndicate safe wedged between the wreckage. Jett saw her expression and immediately knew what she was thinking. "B. No." V grinned. "V yes." Jett's soul left his body. Before anyone could stop her, she ripped the safe's control panel open, hot-wired it in record time, and yanked out a small, nondescript black case. "What is that?" Jett demanded, exasperated. "No idea, but it was in a vault inside a vault, so obviously it's important." V cackled and stuffed it into her jacket. Jett groaned. "This is going to bite us later." "I know it." V patted his shoulder. "Future us problem. Present us is winning." "Run first, complain later," Rhea shouted. The crew dove into the maintenance tunnel, barely escaping as reinforcements stormed the vault behind them. Jett gasped for breath, clutching his side as they sprinted through the dimly lit passage. "Okay, so, not ideal, but we're still alive." "Correction," Bobby beeped, scanning ahead. "Immediate survival status, questionable." Jett frowned. "What?" The tunnel sloped downward sharply, and at the far end, blinking ominously, was a Syndicate dropship already prepping for takeoff. A voice crackled over unseen speakers. "Going somewhere, Mercer?" Jett's stomach dropped. He knew that voice. A shadowed figure stepped down the ship's ramp, boots clicking ominously against the metal floor. Even before he fully emerged into the dim light, Jett could make out the distinct shape of a Syndicate officer's coat and a disturbingly familiar smirk. "Oh, come on," Jett groaned. "Not him." Jett had faced a lot of terrible things in his life. Bounty hunters, crime lords, one very aggressive space octopus. But this might top the list. Because of course it had to be Rook. The universe clearly hated him. Because stepping off the Syndicate dropship, smug as ever, was Captain Elias Rook. "Mercer," Rook said, his voice oozing with superiority. "Still running scams, still making bad decisions, I see." Jett forced a smile. "Rook, wow, it's been so long. You're still insufferable, I see." Reyna blinked. "Wait, you know him?" Jett sighed. Unfortunately, Rook was everything Jett hated wrapped in a smug, perfectly pressed uniform. Former Syndicate officer, current enforcer, And, worst of all, Jett's old rival from his smuggling days. "I'd ask what you're doing here, Mercer," Rook continued, stepping forward with that stupid confident stride he always had. "But I think I already know. You're about to make a very bad escape attempt." V tilted her head. "Wait, if he knows that, does it mean we should run?" Jett yelled. The crew bolted as blaster fire erupted behind them. "Get them!" Rook barked, and Syndicate enforcers poured out of the dropship. Jett sprinted ahead, narrowly avoiding getting vaporized by plasma fire. "I hate that guy. I hate him so much." "We noticed," Rhea shouted, punching an enforcer so hard he flew into another one. Reyna fired over her shoulder. "Where's the exit plan, Mercer?" "Okay, so hear me out." Jett panted, ducking behind a crate. "What if I don't know? We steal his ship?" The prince, running alongside him, groaned. "Oh, wonderful. Another reckless idea." V perked up immediately. "Oh, I love this idea." Jett groaned, already regretting everything. "Why do I even talk?" "I hate this idea," Rhea grumbled. "We don't have other ideas." Jett shouted. "So, new plan. We steal the Syndicate dropship and get off this station before Rook murders me out of pure spite." A blaster bolt whizzed past his ear. "Correction," Jett yelped. "Before Rook murders me right now." Bobby beeped. "Pilot override controls detected. I can access the ship if I reach the command terminal." "Great. Someone get Bobby to that terminal." V grabbed the droid and launched herself toward the console like an excited gremlin. "V, don't!" Jett started. Too late. V landed on the control panel, immediately pressing at least 20 buttons at random. Jett's soul left his body. No. The dropship's engines roared to life. "Success!" she cheered. "I swear to the stars." Jett didn't even finish his sentence. "Everyone on the ship." The crew rushed aboard, blaster fire pinging off the hull. Rook, still standing on the docking platform, narrowed his eyes as Jett climbed into the pilot's seat. His smirk twitched slightly, just enough to suggest that for once, Jett was actually getting under his skin. "You won't outrun me, Mercer," he called over the noise. Jett flashed him a grin. "Watch me." The stolen dropship blasted off the station, engines roaring. "We are never going to a Syndicate party again." V, completely unbothered, kicked her feet up on the console. "I don't know, I had fun." Jett yelled as they shot into space. Jett had zero faith in their getaway plan. Then again, when did he ever? At this point, he was pretty sure winging it was their official strategy. Mostly because they didn't have one. The stolen Syndicate dropship rocketed through space, alarms blaring in protest as the crew scrambled to keep the ship from shaking itself apart. "Why does everything we steal sound like it's dying?" Jett shouted over the noise. Bobby beeped. "Structural integrity at 42%. Also, enemy pursuit detected." Jett groaned. Of course there's pursuit. A glance at the rear display confirmed his worst fear. 3 Syndicate gunships, closing in fast. Rook's voice crackled over the comms. "Mercer, you really think you can outrun me?" Jett hit the mute button. "I know I can ignore you." Jett hit the mute button. "Not in the mood." Reyna slid into the co-pilot seat. "Options." Jett thought quickly. "We could try outrunning them." Rhea folded her arms. "This ship is literally falling apart." "Fina, we could fight." V cackled. "Now that's a plan. Except we have no weapons." Jett snapped. V pouted. "Less of a plan." The ship lurched violently as enemy fire grazed the hull. Bobby beeped. "Correction. Hull integrity at 32%. Also, this ship was not designed for reckless stunts through hazardous environments." "Neither was I, Bobby. And yet here we are." Jett shot back. "I hate this job," Jett muttered. "All right, last option. We find cover and hide until they give up." The prince raised an eyebrow. "And where exactly do you suggest we hide in open space?" Jett's eyes flicked to the NAV display. A debris field loomed ahead, wreckage from old battles, drifting in a tangled mess of metal and ruin. "There," Jett declared. "We lose them in the debris field." Reyna squinted. "That looks like a horrible idea. Do you have a better one?" Reyna smirked. "Not yet, but I'll let you know when this one gets us killed." Jett punched the thrusters, sending the dropship hurtling into the chaotic mess of floating wreckage. Behind them, Rook's gunships followed. "Hang on," Jett shouted as he swerved between twisted hulls and broken starship remains. Metal scraped against their shields, and a piece of debris bounced off the viewport with a very unsettling thunk. "This is the worst roller coaster ever." V laughed, barely holding onto her seat. The gunships tried to follow, but the dense wreckage forced them to slow down. "It's working," Rhea called. "Don't say that," Jett yelled. "The universe hears you when you say that." A proximity alarm blared. Bobby beeped. "Warning, unidentified energy signature detected." Jett stiffened. "What kind of energy signature?" Bobby hesitated. "Unclear. Running additional scans, still unclear. Attempting further analysis. Yep, still unclear." Ahead of them, the debris shifted, the faint glow of something huge pulsing behind the wreckage. For a split second, Jett swore he saw a silhouette moving. Something impossibly large, as if something massive was lurking just beyond the wreckage. Jett's stomach dropped. "Oh, that's not good." Jett had exactly 3 seconds to process the horrifyingly large thing moving in the debris field before Bobby beeped again. In those 3 seconds, he made peace with exactly none of his life choices. Correction, extremely unidentified energy signature detected. Also increasing in size. Jett gripped the controls tighter. "What do you mean increasing in size?" Possibility 1. The object is moving closer. Possibility 2. The object is expanding. Jett felt all the blood drain from his face. "I don't like either of those possibilities." V, completely unbothered, peered through the viewport. "Oh, that's big." Reyna leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "That's not a ship." The massive shape finally shifted into full view, emerging from the wreckage like a leviathan rising from the deep. As it moved, twisted metal and shattered hulls were pulled along with it, orbiting like debris caught in a gravitational field. It was metallic but organic, a dark, towering construct covered in shifting plates of alien technology. Strange, pulsing veins of light ran through its structure, as if it were alive. Jett swore under his breath. "I really don't like this." Rhea scowled. "If that's not a ship, what the hell is it?" The thing rippled, not moving like a machine, but like a living organism. Then, suddenly it turned toward them. The ship lurched violently as their controls flickered, every system glitching at once. Bobby beeped. "New update. We are experiencing an external system override. Also, the lights are flickering ominously, which I am 87% sure is not a good sign." Jett's stomach sank. "It's hacking the ship." The comms crackled to life. A voice, deep, distorted, and wrong, echoed through the cockpit. "Who dares trespass in the graveyard?" The voice wasn't just heard. It was felt like a pressure against their skulls, like it was speaking inside their minds rather than through the comms. Silence fell over the crew. Jett swallowed hard. "So, who wants to tell the very big, very terrifying thing that we're just passing through?" V grinned. "Oh, eat dough." "No, hit feast." "Absolutely not." The creature moved closer, and suddenly the stars behind it blinked out. No, not blinked. They were being swallowed by the sheer size of this thing. Rook's voice crackled over the comms. "Mercer, what the hell did you do?" Jett's hands were white-knuckled on the controls. "Oh, just another Tuesday." Rhea groaned. "I hate your Tuesdays." Jett had talked his way out of many terrible situations. Smuggling charges, bounty hunters, one disastrous incident involving an angry monarch and a stolen parade float. But this was new. He was pretty sure none of those past disasters had included an ancient, possibly godlike entity judging his soul. Smuggling charges, bounty hunters, one disastrous incident involving an angry monarch and a stolen parade float. But this was new. "All right," Jett said, voice just a little higher than usual. "Let's all agree that this is the worst thing we've ever seen." "Oh, absolutely," Rhea said. "Easily top 3, Reyna added. "I don't know," V mused. "Remember that time with the sentient gelatin?" "Not the time," Jett snapped. The colossal entity loomed before them, its shifting metallic surface rippling in a way that should not have been possible for something so massive. The wreckage caught in its gravitational pull twisted and broke apart, drawn ever closer to its pulsing core. A low, resonant hum filled the air, not sound, but something deeper, like a vibration pressing against their bones. Its shifting metallic surface rippling in a way that should not have been possible for something so massive. The wreckage caught in its gravitational pull twisted and broke apart, drawn ever closer to its pulsing core. And then, the voice returned. Your presence defile the sacred dead. Jett's stomach dropped. That was never a good sentence to hear. Rook's voice crackled back over comms. I take it back. Now I think you've finally doomed us all. Jett ignored him. Hi. Mysterious cosmic horror? We were just leaving. No defiling happening here. Just some light fleeing. The air felt heavier. The lights flickered again. The unworthy do not leave the graveyard. V elbowed Jett. Oh, ask it what is worthy. Maybe we can pretend to be that. Jett's face contorted into the purest expression of existential dread. Do you want me to negotiate with the giant death monster? Maybe we can pretend to be that. Jett turned to her, horrified. Do you want me to negotiate with the giant death monster? Well, it already doesn't like us. Might as well commit to bad decisions. Jett groaned. Fantastic. Love this. Love all of this. The entity shifted again, and suddenly the entire ship felt wrong, like the space around them was warping. Bobby beeped. Ship systems failing. If anyone has a brilliant plan, now would be the time. Jett inhaled sharply, squared his shoulders, and did the only thing he was remotely good at. He started talking. Listen, mighty and, incredibly large entity. Clearly, we've made a mistake. We didn't mean to trespass. We were just, running for our lives from some guys who wanted to shoot us. Silence. The lights pulsed. Jett cleared his throat. Also, we can, leave an offering? You know, a gesture of goodwill. People do that, right? The air went deathly still. Then, at last, the voice returned. An offering? Jett nodded wildly. Yes, an offering. A fine, worthy gift. He turned to the crew, mouthing, somebody find something to give it, right now. V, without hesitation, pulled the mysterious black case she stole from the syndicate vault out of her jacket. V, Jett hissed. Why do you still have that? Don't question the loot, she whispered back. The entity stirred. The ship groaned. Show me. A deep thrum passed through the ship, making the hull vibrate. The prince took an involuntary step back. Reyna's hand twitched toward her weapon, but she didn't draw it. Yet. Jett swallowed. I hate everything about this. The ship groaned loudly, as if the universe itself agreed. Jett had made a lot of questionable choices in his life, but handing over stolen mystery loot to a cosmic horror was about to rank very, very high on that list. Right next to smuggling live venom weasels and agreeing to play cards with an armed bounty hunter. V, I just want you to know, Jett whispered as she held up the case. I resent everything about this moment. Noted, V said cheerfully. Now, do I just toss it or? Before Jett could stop her, the case lifted out of her hands on its own, hovering toward the entity. The ship shuddered, groaning as the colossal being's influence pulled at its very core. The entity's glowing fissures pulsed, and for the first time, Jett got the overwhelming sense that it was considering them. Then the case snapped open midair. Inside, nestled in a field of stasis energy, was a small, metallic cube covered in impossibly intricate engravings, symbols that seemed to shift if you looked too long, as if reality itself couldn't quite decide what they meant. The moment it was exposed, the lights on the ship dimmed to nothing, not just off, but swallowed by something deeper than darkness. Jett's pulse skyrocketed. Oh, I hate that. I hate that so much. Bobby beeped. Ship systems experiencing anomalous interference. Suggest immediate regret. The entity let out a sound. Not quite speech, not quite a growl, but something ancient and immense. You hold forbidden knowledge. Jett tensed. Define forbidden? because I was hoping more for interesting conversation piece and less doom cube of inevitable destruction. The entity did not answer. Instead, the cube began to move, floating toward the being like a piece of metal drawn to a magnet. Then, the moment it touched the entity's shifting surface, the entire ship convulsed. A deep, crackling pulse of energy shot through the hull, raising the hair on the crew's arms and sending static rippling through the air. A shockwave of raw energy rippled outward, sending the crew stumbling. The ship tilted violently, alarms blaring in protest. Okay, no, this was a bad idea, Jett shouted, gripping the console. Can we take it back? I vote we take it back. Rhea, bracing herself against the wall, growled. It's a little late for that, genius. Reyna grabbed Jett's shoulder. We need to move. Now, outside the viewport, the entity shifted again, its form warping, glowing fissures spreading like cracks in reality itself. The wreckage caught in its gravity twisted violently, some pieces vanishing into the darkness as if they had never existed. V, somehow still fascinated, whispered, "That's so cool." The prince shot her an incredulous look. That is the opposite of cool. That is the definition of apocalyptic. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the cube vanished into the entity's form. For one impossibly long moment, nothing happened. Then the entity spoke again. The debt is acknowledged. You may leave. Jett froze. Wait, that's it? No death. No eternal torment? No dramatic chase sequence. Rhea blinked. I don't trust it. Can we leave faster? The ship lurched backward, suddenly free of the entity's grip. Bobby beeped. New update. We are no longer imminently doomed. Recalculating overall doom levels. Jett exhaled. Great. Fantastic. Let's never do this again. V grinned. Until next time. There will be no next time. The ship's engines roared to life, and as they blasted away from the entity's domain, Jett finally allowed himself to believe, just for a second, that they might have actually survived. Of course, that's exactly when the syndicate showed up. Jett had just started to unclench his jaw when the ship's proximity alarm shrieked back to life. Jett had barely started enjoying the fact that they weren't immediately dead when the proximity alarm shrieked like an angry banshee. He had just started to unclench his jaw. That was his mistake. Incoming vessels. Bobby beeped. Multiple syndicate ships. Also, they appear to be charging weapons. Jett groaned, gripping the controls. Of course they are. Can't we get a 5-minute break? No, Reyna called, already strapping herself in. Time to move, Mercer. Jett yanked the thrusters, sending their ship into a wild spin just as blaster fire ripped through the space they had just occupied. The view behind them lit up with streaks of plasma, syndicate fighters swarming like hornets. Okay, new plan, Jett shouted. Somebody tell me we have weapons. We do not, Bobby confirmed. Awesome, love that, Jett muttered through clenched teeth. Rhea punched a wall. Then we fight dirty. Find me something I can throw at them. Jett stared at her. Define something, and please don't say the prince. Define something, Jett asked, already regretting it. V perked up instantly. Oh, what about? No explosives. Jett barked before she could finish. V had already reached into her jacket, one hand hovering over a suspiciously grenade-shaped object. She sighed and put it back. V huffed. You ruin all my fun. Another blast rocked the ship, setting off a cascade of blaring alarms. Structural integrity at 54%, Bobby reported. Correction, 43%. Jett winced. Stop correcting yourself. The prince, arms crossed, frowned at the controls. We could jump to hyperspace. No, Jett snapped. We're still too close to the debris field. Jumping now would turn us into very high-speed wreckage. So what's the actual plan? Reyna asked, eyes locked on the swarm of syndicate ships behind them. Jett thought fast. No weapons. No backup. No good options. This was usually the part where things exploded, and, statistically speaking, it would probably be their fault. Then his gaze flicked to the NAV screen, and an idea so ridiculous, so monumentally stupid clicked into place. Okay, this might sound bad. It's going to be bad, Rhea cut in. We fly into the debris field. Jett finished. A beat of silence. I love this plan. V grinned. I hate this plan, the prince groaned. Mercer, Rhaenys said, voice calm. Do you know how many ships get ripped apart trying to navigate that wreckage? Jett punched the engines forward. Guess we're about to find out. The ship shuddered violently, metal groaning under the strain. V hooped. The prince muttered what sounded like a royal prayer for sanity. The ship dove into the chaos, twisting between jagged wreckage as syndicate fighters raced after them. Behind them, Rook's voice crackled over the comms. You're just making this harder on yourself, Mercer. Jett grinned wildly. Rook, you know I don't do things the easy way. And with that, they vanished into the storm of shattered metal. Jett had exactly 3 seconds to appreciate the sheer brilliance of his terrible plan before the reality of actually flying through a death trap set in. This wasn't even in his top 5 worst ideas. And that was saying something. The ship lurched hard to the left, dodging a spinning hunk of twisted metal by what had to be millimeters. The debris field was alive with chaos, a tangled mess of shattered warships, broken satellites, and the occasional half-melted escape pod. You call this flying? The prince shouted, gripping his seat with white-knuckled terror. I call this not dying. Jett shot back, yanking the controls hard to avoid a massive hull fragment. Big difference. A syndicate fighter wasn't so lucky. The ship behind them slammed into a drifting chunk of debris, vanishing in a brilliant explosion that sent smaller fragments spiraling in all directions. See? It's working. Jett grinned. Rhaena narrowed her eyes. That was luck. Luck is a strategy. Jett countered. It shouldn't be, the prince yelled. The ship twisted violently as another chunk of wreckage spun past, missing them by inches. V, of course, was having the time of her life. The prince looked physically ill, gripping his seat like it was his last connection to reality. Rhea, meanwhile, was holding onto a wall panel so hard it might snap off. I love this ride, she cackled, throwing her arms up like they were on a roller coaster. You are a menace. Rhea snapped, trying to keep herself steady as the ship careened through the wreckage. Bobby beeped. Structural integrity at 30%. Also, the odds of not being vaporized have dropped to a deeply concerning level. A shower of sparks erupted from the overhead panel. The ship groaned loudly, like it was protesting its entire existence. Also, the odds of not being vaporized have dropped to a deeply concerning level. Great. Love that for us. Jett gritted his teeth. Somebody tell me we're almost through. The NAV screen blinked red. A Jett. Rhaena's voice was suddenly very serious. We've got a problem. Jett didn't like that tone. Bigger than the current problem? Much bigger. He followed her gaze to the viewport, and there it was, looming at the edge of the debris field, half hidden behind drifting wreckage, waiting like a predator, was a syndicate blockade cruiser. Jett's stomach plummeted. The blockade cruiser loomed, shifting ominously from the shadows of wreckage like a beast waiting for its prey. Oh, come on. The cruiser's weapons powered up. Rook's voice crackled over the comms. You didn't really think I let you slip away that easily, did you, Mercer? Jett groaned. Rook, can we please have just one getaway where you're not actively ruining my life? No, Rook said flatly. Target locked. A plasma cannon hummed to life. Jett turned back to his crew. Okay, new plan. Please tell me it's better than the last one, the prince snapped. Debatable. Jett grinned nervously. We ram our way out. Silence. I love this plan. V cheered. I hate this plan, Rhea groaned. Rhaena sighed, already bracing herself. We're so going to regret this. Jett yanked the controls, angling the ship straight toward the blockade cruiser. Bobby, divert all power to the forward shields. Jett barked. Rhaena, be ready on the thrusters. On my mark. The syndicate's cannons fired. Jett shouted now. The ship shuddered violently, metal straining as the thrusters roared to life. The crew braced themselves, and for a split second, time seemed to freeze, just long enough for Jett to really regret everything, before they blasted forward, straight into the chaos. The ship blasted forward, straight into the chaos. Jett had done a lot of reckless things in his life. This This was top-tier stupidity. And yet, some small, deeply misguided part of him still thought this could work. The blockade cruiser's plasma cannons roared, unleashing a wave of fiery death. The ship's shields flared under impact, sending a deep vibration through the hull that rattled Jett's teeth. Shields at 19% and dropping. Bobby beeped. Yeah, I noticed. Jett snapped, gripping the controls. Reyna, boost the thrusters. Give me everything this junk pile's got. Reyna slammed the emergency power switch. The ship lurched forward, engines screaming in protest. Structural integrity at 12%. Correction, 8%. Bobby started. Stop correcting yourself. Jett yelled, weaving through blaster fire, debris, and the creeping sense of his own mortality. The blockade loomed impossibly close now, a wall of armored plating and gun turrets ready to turn them into vapor. Rook's voice crackled over the comms. I have to admit, Mercer, this is bold, even for you. Not smart, just bold. Oh good, Rook's impressed. That makes getting blown up totally worth it. Jett shot back. If it helps, I also think this is stupid, the prince muttered. Jett ignored him. Bobby, how thick is that armor? Analysis, extremely. Great. Love that for us. Jett's eyes scanned the cruiser's hull, searching for anything. There, a launch bay, partially open, lined with inbound syndicate fighters. Jett's grip tightened. Reyna, when I say now, cut the thrusters and give me a full reverse burst. Reyna frowned. We'll stall out. Yeah, if we miss. Jett's grin was wild. Which we won't. I hate this plan, the prince groaned. You always hate my plans. Because they're bad. Jett ignored him, aligning the ship toward the launch bay doors. The ship groaned under the stress, warning lights flickering wildly. If it had feelings, it was probably begging him to stop. This is insane, Rhea muttered. Welcome to my life. Jett hooped. Reyna, get ready. The blockade cruiser fired one last barrage. The ship tilted, shields screaming, but they were already too close. Now, Jett bellowed. Reyna killed the thrusters and slammed the reverse burst. The ship pitched forward, engines sputtering, and then they were inside the launch bay. A beat of silence. Holy, we made it. V gasped. Jett blinked. I mean, yeah, of course we did. We're not dead, the prince added, almost in disbelief. Yet, Rhea growled, already unstrapping, because we just crashed inside a syndicate cruiser. Jett exhaled. Okay, now I admit this was a bad plan. Oh wow, what a shocking revelation, the prince deadpanned. The alarms inside the cruiser blared to life. Rook's voice, somehow both impressed and furious, crackled over the speakers. There was a pause, just long enough to suggest he was debating whether to laugh or murder them immediately. You just boarded my ship. Mercer, you are so dead. Jett groaned. Not yet, but I'm working on it. Jett had no idea how to steal a syndicate cruiser. But honestly, when had that ever stopped him before? But that had never stopped him before. Alarms screamed through the hangar as syndicate enforcers poured in, blasters drawn. The crew barely had time to unstrap before the first shots sizzled past their heads. So, Jett panted, ducking behind a crate as blaster fire lit up the hangar. Who knows how to fly one of these things? Not it. V chirped. Jett, I swear to... Reyna yanked him down as a plasma bolt nearly took his head off. You planned this, and you don't know how to fly it. Hey, in my defense, I didn't expect us to live this long. Jett grinned. Rhea punched an enforcer in the face, stole his rifle, and shot another without breaking stride. Less talking, more not dying. The prince crouched beside Jett, scowling. We need to get to the bridge if we're actually going to steal this thing. Jett nodded. Good plan. Where's that exactly? The prince's scowl deepened. Why are you like this? Bobby beeped. Navigational analysis complete. Nearest route to bridge. 3 decks up, past security checkpoints, and heavily guarded corridors. Awesome. Love that for us, Jett muttered. All right, new plan, V. Got anything explosive? V grinned too widely. I thought you'd never ask. Before anyone could stop her, she lobbed a detonation charge at the far wall. Wait, Vino. Jett's hand shot out in slow motion, far too late. The explosion ripped through the hangar, sending enforcers diving for cover. "V!" the crew shouted in unison. "What?" she called back innocently. "Distraction achieved." "You just blew up our cover," the prince snapped. "Details." Jett grabbed Bobby and ran. No time for arguing. "Move!" The crew sprinted through the chaos, blaster fire chasing them as they barreled into the corridors of the ship. Alarms blared, and Jett had a sinking feeling Rook wasn't just letting them get this far. The comms crackled. "Mercer, I have a question." Jett groaned. "Rook, buddy, pal, can this wait? We're kind of busy. Are you actually trying to steal my ship?" Rook's voice was both amused and deeply irritated. Jett slid around a corner, barely avoiding getting shot. "I regret everything," the prince muttered, dodging after him. "Would you believe me if I said no? Not even remotely. Then why waste the breath?" Jett yanked a security panel open, frantically rerouting power. "Just sit back and enjoy the show. You are an infuriating human being, Mercer." "I know," Jett shouted over the sound of Rhea tackling another guard. Reyna skidded to a stop at the next bulkhead. "This way. Bridge should be ahead." The doors slammed shut in front of them, locking with an ominous metallic clang. A flashing lockdown engaged warning flickered across the control panel. The comms crackled again. "Did you really think I wouldn't lock down my own bridge?" Rook's smugness was palpable. Jett exhaled through his teeth. "I was hoping you'd be distracted." "I'm distracted," Rook admitted. "And yet, here we are." Jett turned to V. "How much more explosive do you have?" V's grin widened as she opened her jacket, revealing far too many explosives. Jett sighed. "That's both reassuring and deeply concerning." V grinned. "Let's find out." Jett stared at the absurd amount of explosives V had stuffed into her jacket and briefly reconsidered every life choice that had led him to this moment. He really should have taken that boring cargo hauling job last year. Then the syndicate started cutting through the door. "Okay, no time for regrets." Jett clapped his hands together. "V, make us a new door. A small, controlled explosion, please." "Small and controlled." V's grin widened. "Define small." "I swear to the stars." Jett pinched the bridge of his nose. "Just don't blow up the bridge before we steal the ship." "No promises." V chirped. Behind them, the lockdown door sizzled, sparks flying as syndicate enforcers burned through the metal. "V, now would be great." Reyna snapped, raising her blaster as the cutting tool pierced through. "Relax." V stuck a charge to the opposite wall. "I got this." The explosion rocked the hallway, blasting a gaping hole straight into the next deck. Jett hit the floor with a yelp, covering his head as debris rained down. "I said small." "That was not small." Smoke and debris rained down as alarms blared even louder. Jett coughed. "That was not small." V shrugged. "Define small." "You're welcome." V called cheerfully, already jumping through the hole. Rhea shoved Jett forward. "Move, before Rook's guys get through." The crew scrambled through the opening, landing in what looked like a high-security storage bay. Crates of syndicate contraband were stacked high, locked behind blast-proof panels. "Oh, what is all this?" V's eyes gleamed. "Not the time." Jett yanked her away as Rhea barricaded the hole behind them. Bobby beeped. "Bridge access detected. 1 level above." "Perfect." Jett grinned. "Let's." The entire ship jolted, throwing them off balance. Warning sirens screeched as the intercom blared. "Warning, unauthorized boarders. Deploying defense protocols." Jett's stomach sank. "Oh, that can't be good." The storage bay doors slammed open, and 4 massive combat droids stomped inside, their glowing red optics locking onto the crew. For half a second, nobody moved. "Maybe they're friendly?" V tried. The droids raised their weapons. "They're not friendly." Jett yelped. "Correction," Bobby beeped. "Immediate survival status. Unlikely." Jett threw his hands up. "I hate this ship." The droids' weapons whined to full charge. "You're about to hate it more," Reyna muttered. Jett had precisely 0 plans for dealing with 4 massive combat droids other than run, or hope they explode before we do. Admittedly, those strategies had worked for him before, but his luck wasn't exactly trending upwards today. Neither seemed great. The droids' weapons whined to full charge, casting the storage bay in a sinister red glow. Okay, new plan, Jett blurted. The droids opened fire. Jett dove behind a crate, narrowly avoiding a plasma barrage that melted the floor where he'd been standing. We run, Jett yelled. I love that plan. V cackled, already sprinting. The crew scattered as the droids advanced, their heavy footfalls shaking the deck. Rhea grabbed a syndicate rifle from the nearest weapons locker and unloaded a full clip into one of the droids. The bullets bounced off harmlessly. Oh, come on, she growled. They're armored, the prince shouted, ducking behind another crate. Blasters won't work. What will work? Jett demanded. Bobby beeped. Analysis complete. Recommended strategy. Run faster. Super helpful, buddy. Jett wheezed, bolting for the exit. The storage bay doors slammed shut, locking them inside. Rook's voice crackled over the intercom. Running out of places to go, Mercer? Or is this all part of some grand, incredibly stupid plan? That depends. Jett panted. Are you offering to let us leave? Rook chuckled. Not a chance. The droids closed in, their targeting systems honing in on the crew. I got it, V shouted, already rummaging through a crate. We use their own weapons against them. She yanked a massive rocket launcher from the crate and hoisted it onto her shoulder. Jett's face contorted into a perfect mix of horror and resignation. V&O. Jett's eyes went wide. V&O. V fired. For a split second, there was silence. Then, the explosion obliterated one droid, sent another flying into the wall, and knocked the entire crew off their feet. Yes, V cheered. That worked way better than expected. Jett dragged himself upright, coughing on smoke. To find better, the surviving droids reeled, recalibrating. We need to go, Reyna snapped, pointing at an overhead maintenance hatch. Way ahead of you. Jett leapt onto a crate, grabbing the hatch's release lever. The ceiling panel swung open, revealing a narrow ventilation shaft. Everyone in, Jett ordered. The crew scrambled up, just as the droids recovered and resumed firing. Jett pulled himself through the hatch last, slamming it shut behind him. A deep metallic bang sounded as the droids blasted the ceiling from below. Jett exhaled. Okay, that went great. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring louder. Bobby beeped. Correction, syndicate reinforcements incoming. Jett groaned. I hate this ship. Bobby beeped. Statement acknowledged. Jett didn't know how long they could keep running, but at the rate things were exploding, they were going to run out of ship real soon. And when you ran out of ship, there was usually only vacuum left. The ventilation shaft was narrow, dark, and smelled vaguely of burnt wiring and bad decisions as the crew crawled forward at top speed. Where does this even go? The prince demanded. Away from murder bots. Jett shot back. Below them, the droids blasted the ceiling again, sending a shockwave through the shaft. Hurry up, Rhea hissed. Before they figure out how to. With a metallic groan, the vent gave out. Jett had just enough time to think, of course this is happening, before the entire crew plummeted downward. They crashed through a panel, landing in a dimly lit engineering bay in a heap of limbs and bad life choices. Whose elbow is that? Jett wheezed. Not mine. V called from somewhere under Reyna. Ow! V groaned from underneath Jett. New plan. We steal some padding next time. Next time? The prince wheezed, shoving Jett off him. Bobby beeped. Analysis. This is the ship's primary power core. Also, we are now very exposed. Estimated number of hostiles actively hunting us. At least 20. Jett sat up, blinking at the massive reactor core humming in the center of the room. Wait, power core. He grinned. We can use this. Reyna narrowed her eyes. Jett, what exactly is that reckless brain of yours thinking? Simple. We disable the core, shut down the whole ship, and make our escape in the chaos. The ship shook violently, a new alarm blaring overhead. V clapped her hands. Oh, new crisis unlocked. Warning, warp engines charging. Jump sequence initiated. Jett's stomach dropped. Oh, that's bad. The prince's eyes widened. We're moving. Bobby beeped. Correction, the ship is preparing for warp. Estimated time until jump, for minutes. Jett scrambled to his feet. Okay, change of plans. We really need to shut down the core now. And how exactly do we do that? Rhea snapped. V grinned. I have explosives. The prince threw up his hands. Why am I not surprised? Jett sighed. Of course you do. Jett had pulled off some truly terrible ideas in his time. There was the time he accidentally hijacked a diplomat's ship, and the time he tried to bluff his way out of a bounty by claiming to be his own evil twin. But this was top 5. Easily. The power core hummed ominously, casting eerie blue light across the room. The entire ship shuddered as the warp engines powered up, rattling loose panels and sending sparks raining from the ceiling. 3.5 minutes to warp, Bobby reported. Also, a reminder, blowing up the power core will likely result in catastrophic failure. Jett clapped his hands. Okay, we're not going to blow up the core. Just damage a little. Gently. With explosives. The prince glared. Do you even hear yourself? V had already pulled out a handful of high-yield charges and was happily sticking them to the core's outer casing. The prince's face drained of all color, while Rhea's hand instinctively went to her gun, as if that would help. V, Jett yelped. Less enthusiasm, more precision. Define precision, she called back. Explosions that don't kill us. Rhea snapped, yanking V back before she stuck a charge to something labeled Do Not Touch. 2 minutes, 45 seconds to warp, Bobby beeped. The ship lurched violently as another explosion rocked the deck above them. I hate this ship, Jett growled, yanking open a control panel. Okay, plan adjustment. Reyna, can you override the core's failsafes? Reyna crouched beside him, already pulling wires. I can, but that means if we screw this up, the ship definitely explodes. Jett grinned. I like those odds. I don't, the prince snapped. Nobody asked you. Jett and V yelled in unison. Reyna cursed under her breath as she rerouted the ship's controls. You know, I studied for years to be an engineer, and somehow I always end up fixing your disasters. I can overload the power core manually, but we'll need a distraction. The doors to engineering slid open. Rook stepped through, flanked by heavily armed syndicate enforcers. He sighed. Mercer, you always have to make things difficult, don't you? Jett froze. Oh, hey Rook, what a totally unexpected surprise. Rook's blaster snapped up. Step away from the controls. Jett finger-gunned at him nervously. Or, hear me out, we don't do that. Rook's eyelid twitched, his blaster tilting slightly, like he was debating whether Jett was worth the ammunition. Rook's expression was pure exasperation. Shoot them. Blasters fired. Jett dove sideways, yanking the prince down with him as plasma bolts tore through the air. The room erupted into chaos. Jett hit the ground hard, rolling behind a console as plasma bolts shredded the air above him. The heat singed the edge of his jacket, and the acrid smell of burning metal filled his nose. Okay, I feel like negotiations have completely broken down, he yelled. You think? The prince snapped, pressed flat against the floor as syndicate enforcers advanced, blasters firing. Rhea returned fire, taking out 2 of them before ducking as a bolt sizzled past her ear. Less talking, more shooting. Can't we do both? Jett called back, firing wildly over the console. Reyna cursed, still working on the power core panel. Jett, we need time. Oh yeah, sure. Let me just politely ask them to pause. Jett yelped as a plasma bolt tore through his jacket sleeve. Not happening. V, grinning wildly, lobbed a detonation charge toward the enforcers. Jett's eyes went wide. Oh, come on. Rook's eyes widened. Oh, 4, take cover. The explosion ripped through the room, sending syndicate enforcers flying and knocking out the overhead lights. The emergency glow from the power core bathed everything in flickering blue. V. Jett coughed through the smoke. What did I say about moderation? That it's boring and I ignore it, she chirped, reloading. Rook groaned from across the room. Mercer, I swear to. No time for death threats. Jett interrupted. Reyna, please tell me that did something useful. Reyna yanked a final wire. Core's destabilizing. We have 45 seconds before shutdown. And that means? The prince asked, eyes wide. That means we run before this thing blows. Jett grabbed Bobby. Move! The crew bolted for the door, dodging the last of the Syndicate enforcers. Rook, coughing through the smoke, leveled his blaster at Jett's back. Jett skidded to a halt, spinning around just as Rook fired. But the ship lurched violently, throwing them both off balance. The power core surged, alarms wailing as the warp drive collapsed mid-charge. Everything went white. A ringing silence swallowed the ship, a strange, weightless moment of stillness before. And then, the ship dropped out of hyperspace. Jett's stomach somersaulted as the crew crashed to the floor. The lights flickered back on, revealing the entire room tilted at a sickening angle. Sparks rained down. The core pulsed wildly, unstable energy arcing from the walls. Rook, flat on his back, groaned. "Mercer, what did you do?" Jett staggered upright, taking in the damage. Then he looked past Rook, out the viewport, where a massive, unknown structure loomed outside the ship. Jett blinked. Guys." His face was a perfect mix of horrified confusion and exhausted resignation. The crew turned. Silence fell, because they were no longer in Syndicate-controlled space. The structure outside was massive, its dark, jagged surface covered in strange, shifting glyphs that pulsed faintly. It looked neither abandoned nor entirely alive, just watching. They had jumped somewhere else, somewhere no one recognized. Jett had seen a lot of things in his time. Angry bounty hunters, exploding space stations, and one very unsettling sentient vending machine that kept demanding payment in flesh credits. But whatever was outside that viewport, this was new. The structure loomed, enormous and jagged, its shifting glyphs pulsing in eerie synchronization. The patterns twisted and reshaped, almost like a message or a warning. It wasn't just floating in space. It was anchored, tethered to unseen forces that made Jett's stomach churn just looking at it. "Well," he said, rubbing his temples, "I regret everything that led to this moment." Rook groaned, still sprawled on the tilted floor. "Mercer, you absolute menace, what did you do?" "Oh sure, blame me." Jett threw his hands up. "I didn't tell the ship to jump into whatever this is." Bobby beeped. "Correction. The warp core destabilization created an uncontrolled jump. Location, unknown." The prince, still staring at the structure, muttered, "I hate unknown." Reyna, gripping a flickering console, scanned the readings. "I can't even get a read on where we are. No badges, no familiar star patterns. So we're lost." Rhea asked flatly. "Super lost," Jett confirmed. V, eyes wide with fascination, pressed her face against the viewport. There was a beat of silence. Then, "I want to touch it." "Absolutely not," the entire crew yelled in unison. The ship shuddered, lights dimming for a split second as a low, thrumming sound vibrated through the hull. Jett's skin prickled, the sensation crawling up his spine like static electricity. The glyphs on the structure flared, shifting into patterns that felt intentional. Bobby beeped. "Correction, we are not alone." A deep, uneasy silence settled over the crew. Jett's blood ran cold. "I hate this ship." Jett had a very simple rule when it came to ominous space ruins covered in glowing alien glyphs. Do not investigate them. Ever. A rule that his crew ignored every single time. Do not investigate them. Ever. Unfortunately, his crew never listened to him. "We should investigate it," V announced, still practically pressed against the viewport, eyes gleaming. "Think of the possibilities. Ancient treasure, forgotten technology, a horrifying parasite that puppets people like meat suits." Jett pinched the bridge of his nose. "That last one was supposed to convince me not to go." The ship lurched again, lights flickering wildly. A deep thrumming pulse echoed through the hull, and Jett swore the glyphs outside were responding, twisting and reshaping like they were watching them. "I really hate this ship," Jett muttered. "The structure appears to be transmitting a signal," Bobby beeped. "Frequency unknown. It is now scanning us." "Great. Love that. Anyone else feel extremely judged right now?" Jett said, trying to steady himself as another tremor ran through the ship. "We need to leave. Now," Reyna said firmly, already working at the controls. "Jett, see if you can." The ship powered down. The hum of the engines vanished. The air felt too still, as if the entire ship was holding its breath. Everything, everything, the lights, the consoles, even the low hum of the life support systems, all of it died in an instant. For a moment, the crew sat in stunned silence in the pitch black, the only light coming from the eerie glow of the glyphs outside. Okay, Kay, Jett said slowly. That seems not great. Correction, Bobby beeped, his voice coming through without any power source active. This is very bad. Jett's stomach dropped. Bobby? How are you even? Unknown, Bobby admitted. The glyphs flared, pulsing in sequence. And then, something knocked on the hull. A deep, resonating impact, like a deliberate test. Not random debris, not a system glitch. A deep, resonating impact. Not random debris, not a system glitch. Something was out there. The crew froze. Jett swallowed hard. I don't suppose anyone wants to suggest that was just like space wind? Another knock. Louder. Nope. Nope. I hate that. The prince said quickly, backing away from the viewport. Rhea's hand was already on her gun. That didn't sound like an automated system. That sounded intentional. I hate intentional. Jett hissed. The knock came again. And then, the airlock began to cycle open. Jett lunged at the console, hands flying across the controls. Shut it down. Lock it down. Somebody do something. Jett spun to the console. I didn't do that. Who did that? Not me, Reyna said quickly. I wish it was me. V added, still disturbingly excited. We are not opening that door. Jett barked, slamming buttons wildly. Somebody shut it down. Lock it. Throw something at it. Bobby, override it. Bobby beeped, unable to comply. We are no longer in control of the ship. The airlock hissed as the final lock disengaged. The doors slid open. A deep, unnatural shadow loomed beyond the threshold. For a split second, Jett thought he saw movement, something shifting, its shape impossible to pin down. Something stepped inside. Jett had precisely zero expectations that whatever just boarded the ship was going to introduce itself politely. He was correct. The shadow shifted, folding and unfolding in ways that hurt to look at. Jett's stomach churned, his vision swimming like he was looking at something that should not exist. It had no clear shape, no face, just a suggestion of limbs that never seemed to stay in the same place. And yet, Jett felt something staring directly at him. Nope, nope, I hate this. Jett yelped, grabbing the prince and pulling him back. What? Stop touching me. The prince protested, but he wasn't exactly resisting. Reyna, what is that? Rhea demanded, already drawing her blaster. Do I look like I have a degree in nightmare fuel studies? Reyna snapped. The entity glided forward. The temperature dropped instantly. Jett could see his breath cloud in the air. The glyphs flared, and a deep, resonating sound filled the room. Not spoken words, but something deeper, pressing directly into their minds. Jett clutched his head. Okay, I don't know what it's saying, but I haven't felt this judge since my ex told me I was all impulse, no brain. Bobby beeped. Correction. Entity is communicating via direct neural resonance. Translation unavailable. Also, this is very bad. Oh, great, Bobby. Super helpful. Jett groaned. V, meanwhile, was still grinning. I want to touch it. V, the entire crew shouted. The entity twitched. A moment of eerie stillness followed, like it was waiting for something. Then, it spoke. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe it just forced the words directly into their skulls. Unworthy. The ship shook violently. The lights flashed erratically, glyphs rearranging in frantic patterns. The entity expanded, its limbs stretching unnaturally as if it was deciding whether or not to simply crush them. Jett bolted for the controls. Nope, nope. This is officially a bad first impression. We're leaving. Right now. Oh sure, just press the escape horrible cosmic horror button, Jett. Reyna snapped. Can we even do that? The prince snapped, barely keeping his footing. I don't know, but I'm gonna lie and say yes. Jett shouted, slamming buttons wildly. The ship resisted. It was like something was holding them in place. The entity's form distorted, its attention seemingly divided between them and the ship itself. Okay, new plan, Jett gasped. Somebody do something incredibly reckless before we all die. V's grin widened. I love when you say that. She pulled a grenade from her jacket. Then another. Then a third. Jett paled. Why do you have so many grenades? Jett paled. I didn't mean. Jett had been in a lot of bad situations before, but this one was making top 3. The entity twisted, its form distorting further as the ship's glyph-covered walls pulsed. The air grew thick, pressing down like an invisible weight, as if the ship itself was struggling to contain something far too big for reality. It wasn't just here, it was everywhere, reaching into the ship itself. And V was about to make it so much worse. V, I swear, if you throw a grenade at a literal, unknowable cosmic being. Too late. V threw a grenade at a literal, unknowable cosmic being. Jett's soul left his body for a full second. The prince made a sound that was half a scream, half a dying cat. The explosion ripped through the airlock, engulfing the entity in a bright, concussive shockwave. Jett hit the floor hard, the sheer force knocking the crew backward as alarm screamed. For a moment, Jett dared to hope that actually did something. And then the smoke cleared. The entity was still there, and now it was angry. V, the entire crew shouted. In my defense, I really thought that would work. V called, already fumbling for another grenade. Do not throw another one. Jett scrambled to the controls, wildly slamming buttons. Reyna, is the ship listening to us yet? Reyna cursed as sparks rained from the failing consoles. Whatever that thing is, it's still inside our systems. We can't break free. The entity shifted, its presence swelling until it filled the entire room. The lights strobed violently, and a deep, inhuman voice echoed straight into their skulls. You are not meant to be here. Jett's pulse hammered. Great. We agree. Let's leave. The glyphs burned with searing light. A force pinned Jett to the console, a crushing weight pressing on his chest. Something pushed into his mind. A flood of images, stars burning out, ancient ships drifting, something vast and waiting just beyond the edges of reality. And buried in it all, a fleeting glimpse of something familiar, something Jett could almost recognize before it was gone. And then, a choice. Leave or stay and understand. Jett gasped for breath. He could feel it, the sheer weight of knowledge offered and denied at the same time. Something bigger than him, bigger than the entire galaxy. And for half a second, he almost wanted to know. Jett. The prince's voice snapped him out of it. We have to go. Jett's head cleared. Right? No cosmic enlightenment today. Just survival. Reyna, he choked out. One last try. Override everything. Shut down everything. Reyna's eyes widened. You want me to kill the ship? Yup. Jett yelled. Do it. Reyna hesitated, then punched the emergency shutdown. The ship died. Total system collapse. The entity reeled, its connection severed as the ship went completely dark. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the emergency backup thrusters kicked in. They were free. The ship lurched away from the structure, flung like a stone from a slingshot. The glyphs dimmed, the entity's form shrinking back into the darkness. Jett collapsed against the console, sucking in a shaky breath. We're alive. We're actually alive. The prince groaned. For now. V, still grinning, patted Jett's shoulder. See? That wasn't so bad. Jett gave her a blank stare. You threw a grenade at an extra-dimensional nightmare. V shrugged. It exploded, didn't it? Seems like a win to me. And it worked. It did not work. Bobby beeped. Correction. We are now adrift in unknown space. Also, the ship is on fire. Jett ran a hand down his face. I hate this ship. Rhea sighed. So, what now? Jett leaned back, staring at the flickering lights above. Well, we're alive, which means we get to make a very important choice. The crew waited. Jett grinned. Breakfast or alcohol? The prince groaned into his hands. Rhea immediately raised her hand. Alcohol. No question. The prince groaned. We're doomed.